Who went live early? What the fuck? I did Mudahar's podcast earlier today. Reddit load images directly is disabled. Okay. Should I have accepted that? My shirt. That's one of the ones I bought with Melina. I think this shirt is actually too big for me, though. I think I have to trash it. The shoulders are like way off, and the sleeve is literally like to my fucking elbow. I think this is too much. No, they started asking for weird permissions. Because I mean, I should. You can roll the sleeve. It's not just the sleeve though. Like the whole, like these are like too wide out too. Like I'm pretty sure these parts should be like up here. Your Ochwin's debate was so much fun. You guys had great chemistry. Would you consider doing more with them? Maybe. I mean, like, I don't think I would travel to Arizona just to do another show, but... Jesus, the fuck is this? This dude got exploded. Has the Flagrant podcast reached out to you, the one with Andrew Schultz? I don't think so, no. For this on Twitter, is this true? Netanyahu says the airstrike in Rafah on Sunday was a tragic mistake and adds that it will be investigated. Did he say the airstrike was a mistake, or did he say that civilians getting killed was a mistake? Rafah strike.
With BreezeLine's fiber-powered speeds up to 1 gig and 99.9% reliability, in any room, you won't have to think about your internet again.
There's an Obsidian timeline plugin, but it doesn't render if you publish it. Oh, I don't use that timeline. I don't think any of the timeline plugins are very good, actually. I just use the canvas instead. Russian soldier shoots a drone with his shotgun. Damn. I guess. Would it be shotguns with birdshot? Do you think that's the best way to take out a drone? I guess it might be, right? Because of the spread. Can you do that? How much Red Bull do you drink per day? Usually just one per day. No, probably slugs. No shot. It looks like it's far away, but it sounds like it's... I'm trying to think of how the difference... How long does it take when you're doing skeet? You pull the thing, you're aiming, boom. The pigeon blows up pretty quickly. It looks like it's really far away, but the travel time seems pretty fast for the round, but I don't know. This is a pretty far... This is a good shot. They have big-ass drones. It is a big drone, too, though. It's a bigger... But this is a different type of shooting as well. Like, there's a difference between, like, tracking a moving target and then leading, because you do have to lead it. He absolutely is leading a bit this range. And then shooting, as opposed to just shooting stationary targets. Could it be the lens that makes it look further away? Maybe, I don't know. It's a pretty wide angle, so things appear more distant, and he could definitely be using slugs long barrel. What does a long barrel have to do with slugs? Also, why would you shoot slugs out of a shotgun? Why wouldn't you just use a rifle at that point? No? For traveling loader box, why did he fly to the U.S. and not to Israel right away? Apparently, I think he's like out doing things here. What do you mean? I think he's like meeting people, hang out with people. He's here for like a week. He's not like he's living with me or some shit. Jesus Christ. That's not safe for life. Video games have ruined perception of a shotgun. Birdshot is better than a slug in this situation. I don't know why you would ever shoot a slug. I don't know why you would ever shoot a slug out of a shotgun out of a target like this. I feel like at that point you're just using a rifle. Why are we ever using slugs? Unless somebody can tell me. Are you gonna address the auto speculating about the erudite drama? What is the erudite drama? I feel like it's got to be birdshot, or I don't know if you would shoot buckshot into the air like this. I think I've probably only ever shot... I don't even know what the fuck my shotgun shells are. They're probably all birdshot. Let me check. Hold on. Sorry. I'm just curious because I actually have no fucking idea now. I looked this up at one point in time, but I don't remember what any of this means. Okay. 1200 FPS is the speed of the round. 2 3/4 inch is the size of the casing that contains the beads, I guess. And then an 8. I think 8 probably 8 shot. 8 measures the something of the how big the ball is. Is it how many millimeter? I don't fucking know. I don't know if it says. It says 2 and 3. Yeah, 8 I think is the size of the BB. Yeah, because I think the smaller ones, is it in gauge? It might be the smaller ones are. This is the box. The smaller the number, the closer it is to like I think buckshot is between 2 numbers or something, right? And then the bigger the number, because it's like measuring in gauges or something. I don't remember. I knew this at one point in time. I'm not here to help. 7.5, 8, 9 sizes. For the most part, you can do 7.5 for all your clay shooting, but if you want to get picky, 8 and 9 are better for skeet, and 7.5 is best for trap. I don't know what the difference between skeet and trap is. I use them interchangeably. Is skeet where it's different directions and trap is only overhead, or what is the difference? Trap versus skeet. They're just different games, right? But the clay is it's the same clays for each, right? Trap shooting, targets move away from the shooter. Skeet shooting, targets cross one another. Okay. The gauge number is the weight in grams of a lead ball that can fit in the barrel of the gun. Really? Boner box landed in the U.S. A new power couple is born. Wait, I don't even get the meme. Or what is this even about? See full discussion. This is 11 hours ago. Was this posted on YouTube or something? So when Lonerbox first came, she joined in and was being a bit much. Oh yeah, I just don't think she realized. Lonerbox, I think, is generally pretty not online in terms of like his personal life or like travel plans or anything like that. And I just don't think she realized it. So she was like asking him questions, and he didn't really want to go into all of his travel plans or everything. And I just don't think she realized it. But I don't think it was like I think it was a huge deal. Just kind of a little awkward. Jesus. What is Fallen Chungus? Why was I link this? What the fuck is this?
Okay, so I just deleted my server and left every server. It's that server was something I held very near and dear to me, but there's honestly no point in continuing. For better or for worse, this is the last you're ever going to hear of me. And whether it be tonight, tomorrow, the day after, I will kill myself.
Jesus.
You've won. I'm done trying. There isn't much to look forward to in my daily life. It's these thoughts I've dealt with for as long as I can remember. So, do what you will with that information. I'm leaving. Please don't contact me. Please don't do anything to reach out to me. I'm done. And by the time you do, I'll probably already be dead. Okay, so I just deleted my server and left every server.
What? I don't know anything about this guy. Am I supposed to? Why wouldn't you set this to like publish after you're dead if you actually... You banned him? True. A bit of a timely email. Oh, we need to set up in chat, okay? Because trying to coordinate between like 3 or 4 different groups of people are... it's fucking me. Hold on. Wait, okay. Hold on. I'm sending you... Oh, God. One of you guys, one of you guys are gonna fuck this sheet up, and it's gonna trigger the fuck out of me. Hold on. I need to develop a better system. No, actually I don't. This is so, it's such an uncommon problem. Esoteric? What would you call it? Is esoteric the right word here? Or it's a problem that I personally don't deal with much. Having multiple people trying to schedule out in the same week, like different segments of time, I don't know how to appropriately, like, dole that out. Because I'm running into issues where it's like, well, here's 5 days that are available. Tell me what you're able to do, and then everybody like, well, I have to do this day, and this guy's it's like then 2 people try to schedule for the same day. Oh my God, another former prime minister, please, yes. It's gonna end up being like one or none. No Flame, you talk about getting an assistant a lot, not like Ninu because you have a lot more, but never do it. What are the actual reasons? Is it something like you're not wanting to trust money? The problem is that there are some decisions, I don't know on this, like what I trust to offload. Like, could I hire an assistant that I would trust to schedule my time appropriately while communicating with the other people in my group that would know like the decisions I would make? That's a hard one. I don't know if I have anybody right now for something like this. I just don't know. Like one of my conflicts is like I have a conflict between doing an East Jerusalem tour versus like a tour around like the Gaza Strip. and then multiple kibbutzes there. Like, would I trust like an assistant to be able to figure out like, okay, well, which one should we do? Like, I feel like I have to for stuff like this. I have to do it. You need someone who gathers information from all of them and presents it to you, so you don't have to spend time talking with everyone. No, that's probably true, actually. Yeah. After Israel-Palestine, okay? Well, I'll have more. I'll figure it out. The real meme is I just need like a fucking wife who does all this shit. That's what I really need. That's the dream. The dream is to get some girl who can do it all because she's invested in your life. She knows your shit. She can have personal access to everything. You trust her. That's the dream, okay? What I really need is to bring back Lauren. De Laguna. She's the one. That's the one. No, I'm just kidding. Stop. I mean, Lauren Chen. Yes, that's the one. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Did we ever find a Lauren Western? Do we have a Lauren Western? Or are we still missing one? There's a Lauren that helped us with our canvassing phone banking stuff. I guess she can fill in for now. Have you ever considered learning another language every day on stream for 15 minutes? I kind of have, actually. I've considered it, but... I heard Sejin doesn't do canvassing. Listen, I don't manage any of that, okay? That's free. That's for other people to figure out. Okay. Are you going to meet Katie? Fuck no. I mean, unless she shows up at an event or some bullshit. With the Young Turks retracting and Keffel's getting publicly bodied, will you pursue getting unbanned on Twitch harder? No, I can submit another appeal. The box is green for me, but I already know it's going to get rejected in 12 hours. I'm going to get fucking triggered. There are people making death threats about me on Twitch who like don't get in trouble at all. It's gonna, so just fuck it. I don't care. I just whatever. I have to wait for them to announce like some huge like change in their unbanned policy or some bullshit, and then I'll maybe try shooting it in. Don't you have a contact there? Yeah, up in Twitch? Not really. And the few that I have just tell me that the situation is pretty dire. Not good for me, so. Okay, so what happened here? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu acknowledged Monday that a tragic mistake had been made after an Israeli strike in the southern Gaza city of Rafah set fire to a tent camp housing displaced Palestinians, and according to local officials, killed at least 45 people. Let's see. This is an Israeli strike in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Okay. Set fire to a tent camp housing. Or a tent camp that was housing displaced Palestinians. Okay. The strike only added to the surging international criticism Israel's faced over its war with Hamas, and even its closest allies expressing outrage at civilian deaths. Israel insists it adheres to international law, even as it faces scrutiny of the world's top courts, one of which last week demanded that it halt the offensive in Rafah. That's not really true, but okay. Netanyahu did not elaborate on the error. Israel's military initially said it had carried out a precise airstrike on a Hamas compound, killing 2 senior militants. As details of the strike and fire emerged, the military said it had opened an investigation into the deaths of civilians. Sunday night's attack, which appeared to be one of the war's deadliest, helped push the overall Palestinian death toll in the war above 36,000, according to Gaza Health Ministry, which does not distinguish between fighters and non-combatants on its tally. This number is becoming more and more suspicious, I think, after the last correction. A thought popped into my mind this morning when I came across that number again, and now I'm actually really starting to wonder. But despite our utmost efforts not to harm innocent civilians, last night there was a tragic mistake. Netanyahu said Monday in an address to Israel's parliament, "We are investigating the incident and will obtain a conclusion because this is our policy." Mohammed Abuassa, who rushed to the scene in the northwestern neighborhood of Tel al-Sultan, said rescuers pulled out people who were in an unbearable state. We pulled out children who were in pieces. We pulled out young and elderly people. The fire in the camp was unreal. At least 45 people were killed, according to the Gaza Health Ministry and the Palestinian Red Crescent Rescue Service. The ministry said the dead bodies included at least 12 women, 8 children, and 3 older adults, with another 3 bodies burned beyond recognition. In a separate development, Egypt's military said one of its soldiers was shot dead during an exchange of fire in the Rafah area. Without providing further details, Israel said it was in contact with Egyptian authorities, and both sides said they were investigating. An initial investigation found the soldier had responded to an exchange of fire between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants, Egypt's state-owned Kahira TV reported. Egypt warned that Israel's incursion in Rafah could threaten the two countries' decades-old peace treaty. Rafah, the southernmost Gaza city on the border with Egypt, had housed more than 1 million people, about half of Gaza's population. Jeez. Displaced from other parts of the territory. Oh, no, that's just during the war, I see. Okay. But still a lot of people. But, most have fled once again since Israel launched what it called a limited incursion there earlier this month. Hundreds of thousands are packed into squalid tent camps in and around the city. Elsewhere in Rafah, the director of the Kuwait hospital, one of the city's last functioning medical centers, said it was shutting down and the staff members were relocating to a field hospital. Dr. Suhaib Al-Hamas, what an unfortunate name, said the decision was made after a strike killed 2 health workers Monday at the entrance to the hospital. Netanyahu says Israel must destroy what he says are Hamas's last remaining battalions in Rafah. The militant group launched a barrage of rockets Sunday from the city toward heavily populated center Israel, setting off a raid. Sirens causing no injuries. The strike in Rafah brought a new wave of condemnation, even from Israel's strongest supporters. The U.S. National Security Council said in a statement that the devastating images from the strikes on Rafah are heartbreaking. It said the U.S. is working with the Israeli military and others to assess what happened. French President Emmanuel Macron was more blunt, saying these operations must stop. In a post on X, there are no safe areas in Rafah for Palestinian civilians. I call for full respect for international law and ceasefire. I'm guessing we don't really have any other details. Seems like there was ammo on a Jeep where the strike took place. The explosions in Rafah were caused by Hamas ammunition, not by Israeli airstrike. According to Gazans on the ground, it was a Hamas ammo warehouse that got ignited. I feel like if there was a chance that this wasn't Israel exactly, why would Netanyahu come out and apologize or say it was a tragic mistake immediately? I hate that I don't know. This could literally be videos from Pakistan fucking 20 years ago. I have no idea. They translated it wrong. What do you mean? We'll link his original statement. Or wait, does he speak here?
ברפיח כבר פינינו כמיליון תושבים בלתי מעורבים. ולמרות המאמץ העליון שלנו שלא לפגוע בבלתי מעורבים,
קרתה לצערנו אמש תקלה טרגית. אנחנו חוקרים מהקצינים את דברו. I don't know if I can watch this stream. 1 second. That Twitter video seems to be from last night. It's getting posted everywhere with the translation of the cameraman. فيها رصاص وفيها سلاح وفيها خبطوها جيب مخزن Not a warehouse, a vehicle filled with ammo and weapons.
سيارة فيها سلاح فيها رصاص وفيها سلاح وفيها خبطوها.
It was a jeep
ها لمين دي يكون يعني؟
that belongs to the guys, Hamas. Of course, who else but Hamas? The Hamas part is added in with parentheses.
شايف؟ حسب الله ونعم الوكيل يا شيخ. ها؟ ويطلع صاروخ علينا يجي هنا. حرقنا وريحونا خلص قبعت معانا صار الواحد يتمنى يموت عشان يرتاح من نشوف.
I feel like if a jeep with like ammo and weapons was blown up, like nothing would happen. It's just ammo. If explosives were in the jeep, what kind of explosives would they have to be? Wouldn't it have to be parked like right in the middle of a crowd of people for shit to happen? Like if you had like tents here and you had like a jeep parked here and then this jeep exploded, is it killing 40 people over here? If it, like, I don't know how, I just don't know how, I don't know how deadly or how big the, I guess the ordnance that Hamas is storing, I don't know how big of an explosion it would cause. Somebody said fuel? Oh, maybe. It was probably the fire that killed people, not the blast. How the fuck, how many people die in tents of fire? You can't just run away? People keep saying that people were burned alive. Poorly made tent equals cloth of fire draped over people. Hard to get out of that. Yeah, I guess I guess I would have to see what it actually looked like on the. Is there like video footage of this like on the ground happening? I guess I can imagine a scenario where like a whole bunch of like burning cloth is like falling around you and you're pretty fucked. You're gonna die at that point. And then I imagine, I guess, a scenario where like there's a fire starting at one end of a camp and people are just standing there dying. But I imagine that's probably not the case, huh? Reuters. Hold on one second. The easiest way to verify if a video is from Gaza would be to pull image metadata using a tool like GIMP. Does that even make sense? Doesn't basically every single website these days scrub all the metadata off of files when you upload them? Like how many popular image hosts these days are holding on to all of the metadata and republishing it when you upload an image? Also, why the fuck would you need GIMP? I'm pretty sure like Windows by default you can just look at file metadata these days. Damn, just looking at pictures. Video from the bombing. Keep in mind this guy is Lebanese and an anti-Semitic Hamas supporter. Okay. Let's see. Oh, this was the one with the baby's body with the head blown off or whatever? Did you go to the Miami Air Show? Well, I'm in Miami, so yes. The whole island was the air show. I saw someone claim that the body they're holding onto is old and rotting and not from this incident. The immediate things that I would say to that is that, one, could you really ascertain that from this video? Like, how would you know it's old and rotting and not just, like, covered in dirt and debris? Would be the first question. And then the second contention or concern I would have is, so at this point, I think there's, like, an MO for how Hamas and these other groups operate. I don't think I've ever in my life heard of any of these groups using old bodies as proof of something. I've never heard of that before. So I would be highly skeptical of that claim. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I'd be very skeptical of that because there's no pattern of that type of behavior. And I don't think you could tell from this video if a body is old or not, right? Like, this body could have been pulled from a fire, it could be melted, it could be covered in dirt and debris. Like, there's like a million things. There was a post about the same guy holding bodies of kids. Maybe he's in the right place at the right time. U.S. made small diameter bombs, GBU-39 fragments visible in the Rafah strike. This is from the rear control section. If you're talking about okay, so a GBU-39, is this just referring to the warhead? Or is this referring to the entire warhead plus delivery vehicle, the entire missile? GBU-39, small diameter bomb weapon system. That's wrong. Oh, good one, dumbass. Let's see. More videos from the same guy. It's an extended range, all-weather, day or night, 250-pound class, guided munition. The SDB relies on the global positioning system to provide navigation to the target. Additionally, its small size allows increased aircraft loadout to achieve multiple kills per sortie and inherently reduces the probability of collateral damage. The SDB system employs a smart carriage capable of carrying 4 250-pound capable of fixed and stationary targets. Isn't a fixed target a stationary target? From Air Force fighters and bombers and internal base. All right, the SDB provides. Okay. Israel dropped them from F-35s. Wait, does Israel have F-35s? Fixed is building. Stationary means truck sitting in one spot. Oh, that makes sense, I guess. Sure. Oh, they do. Okay, somebody said to just watch it on my other computer. I guess I could do that, huh? Hold on. Graphic scenes of the aftermath of the Zionist massacre on Rafah that targeted an UNRWA aid warehouse. Oh, now it's an UNRWA aid warehouse. Okay. We've upgraded from tents. Or it could have been like a tent warehouse, I guess. I'm saying that sarcastically, but technically you can have temporary warehouses and stuff set up in tents. It is possible.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. فرجوا عالم. فرجوا عالم.
Here's another video.
حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل.
We've already seen the guy with the baby. We got this video. What's this? Damn, this place got fucked up. I'm just wondering what caused the fire. The explosion does boom, not fire. There must have been something flammable there. Well, I mean, isn't everything covered in like flammable material, like all cloth stuff? Like if they're all set up in temporary tent cities, wouldn't, I don't know, but I don't know, maybe they use non-flammable tent material. I don't know what the normal procedure is for At Destiny, why so smug? Even Netanyahu said it was fuck up. Why are you acting like this nothing and everyone pushing it a lie? Are you okay? I don't think I've said anything even remotely close to that. I don't think I've said even anything pointing in that direction whatsoever at all. Are you okay? Why do you even... I don't understand why people like you even come to my chat. I don't know what you're... If it was a Hamas warehouse, how would Netanyahu know how many Hamas people were killed? I don't even know what that sentence means. If it was a Hamas warehouse, how would Netanyahu know how many Hamas people were killed? Does he know how many were killed? Has he said? I think I saw an initial report that said 2. Then he said there was a tragic mistake. I don't even know what that sentence means. Okay, we've got this, some additional reference imagery. Is it even worth bombing such densely populated areas to target 2 Hamas leaders? I mean, I would have to see the area being bombed. I mean, like, I can't imagine that in an actual tent city of refugees or of people that are legitimate civilians that are trying to just survive, I can't imagine you would ever be bombing these places intentionally. Even if it was to kill a couple Hamas people, that seems like it would always be a horrible idea. Unless you're shooting like the... person's fucking retarded. Unless you're shooting the the blade fucking bombs that, or the blade ones that just come down and chop people up or whatever. Can you tell me how fire decapitates a baby? An initial explosion could maybe remove somebody's head. An explosion that causes something to fall on something and take the head off could happen. A fire that melts something that causes something to collapse on a baby and then the head comes off maybe. I don't know. I'm sure we could imagine there's like 50 million ways it could happen. I wouldn't immediately... I don't know why we would immediately assume that it's impossible. It's unlikely probably that just a head would be severed, but impossible? I mean, there's a lot of shit going on. What do you think of European restrictions on Ukraine's usage of donated weapons? I think it's dumb. I think Ukraine should be able to shoot whatever the fuck they want, wherever the fuck they want. Oh, shrapnel from an explosion? True. This is saying at 1:10, you can see the strike in this video.
BBC News now, and called on Israel to implement the order.
Oh, this is on YouTube, so I should be able to watch it. Hold on.
Welcome to BBC News Now, and we begin with the Israel-Gaza war, and there is growing condemnation of an airstrike near Rafah, which Palestinian officials say killed at least 45 people, including women and children at a refugee camp. An Israeli government spokesman says the initial findings of its investigation are that an airstrike against a Hamas compound nearby set off a fire which killed the Palestinian civilians. The Palestinian presidency in the occupied West Bank described the strike as a massacre and accused Israel of deliberately targeting displaced people. Egypt has also condemned the attack and called on Israel to implement the order by the International Court of Justice to halt its military offensive in Rafah. French President Emmanuel Macron says he's outraged by the Israeli strikes on Rafah, and Qatar also says it could hinder reaching a ceasefire deal. Well, it came just hours after Hamas said it had launched a rocket attack on Tel Aviv on Sunday. Several were intercepted by air defence systems, according to the Israeli military. Dan Johnson has this report.
This was Israel's airstrike late last night in southern Gaza.
Dan Johnson has this report.
This was Israel's airstrike late last night in southern Gaza. It said...
Am I too biased, or is it kind of weird to call it Palestinian officials when talking about Hamas-run agencies? I mean, the problem is it's really hard not to load it either way. If you say Palestinian officials, then it sounds like you're trying to hide the fact that it's Hamas. But if you say Hamas, you're trying to make it sound like it's completely and totally unreliable and uncredible. Like I see people in chat doing this on both sides. Like Hamas is the administrator of the region. So every organization is going to be somehow connected to Hamas, any official reporting organization. Just because they're reporting it and it's Hamas run or Hamas managed doesn't mean every single thing reported is going to be incorrect or wrong. You can't just like wipe it away just because it's from that, you know. Two primary source of damage in an explosion is due to pressure, or the primary source of damage in an explosion is due to pressure unless it's designed to for other effects. Pressure does horrible things to meat/organs. Okay.
as targeting senior Hamas figures with precision weapons. But look what it did to the nearby camp where thousands of Palestinians...
To be fair, I don't think you would say Democrat officials because Democrats are just a party in the United States. What do you mean? They're not... The Democrat has nothing to do with the government in the United States. That's just a political party.
Palestinians were sheltering. Israel says it was striking legitimate targets in line with international law. But many of these people...
Yeah, you'd say U.S. officials, sure.
...had already been uprooted many times through this conflict. Suddenly we heard the sound of a missile, Fadi says. We ran and found the street...
Holy fuck. Their electricity shut down, fuel limited. No games to play, nothing to do. All this man has been doing in his free time for 6 months is mewing.
But many of these people had already been uprooted many times through this conflict. Suddenly we heard the sound of a missile, Fadi says. We ran and found the street covered in smoke. We couldn't see anything. Then we found a girl and a young man who'd been blown to pieces. Women and children are among the casualties here in what they believed was a safe humanitarian zone. This morning, Israeli drones surveyed the damage as people questioned how this could happen.
We heard a very loud sound and saw fire. The kids were screaming, and all the rooms surrounding us were made out of metal sheets. The sound was terrifying.
We set up our tents here, and it has been targeted. They killed our children and burned our...
Fuck me. Every time I get into something, I start noticing things more. Okay, wait. How is it not... Does Google still have the weather for Rafah? This guy's wearing a button-up shirt and like a jacket on top. How is this guy not sweating to death out here?
It's here, and it has been targeted. They killed our children.
Or is this like fashion souls, where like the fit is more important than any functional? Or maybe these are like light jackets? It doesn't look like a light jacket, but maybe it is. I don't know.
and burned our women and elderly in the place they claimed was safe. This is our 7th time.
Cold in the morning before the sun is up. Well, I'm looking at like the weather for Rafah and the, what is this? It's like 18 or 17. No, hold on. 66. I'm trying to access my European brain. 66 degrees is, I'm going to say 18 Fahrenheit. No, I mean 18 Celsius. Wait. No, that's way too cold. I'm going to say 21. Fuck! Oh, no, wait. Wait. 66 F to C. Okay, 66 F to C. Thank you. It is 19. Fuck. Anyway. 19 is cold enough for a button-up shirt and a coat?
Being displaced.
Earlier yesterday, Hamas reminded Israelis it remains a threat. Tel Aviv came under rocket attack for the first time in months. There are questions over Israel's military strategy and an international court ruling against it.
Israel continues the military action that has been asked to stop. Also, Hamas is launching rockets against Israel, so both sides don't respect the ruling of the court.
Israel says a review will examine this loss of life.
Damn, this guy's in a big-ass coat, too. Holy shit. What the fuck? What if these shots are coming from, like, Siberia? What if we're getting psyoped?
Respect the ruling of the court.
Israel says a review will examine this loss of life. But it's Palestinians who count their dead and wonder where in Gaza they can find safety.
Why are you focusing on that? It's just weird. I just don't understand it.
Dan Johnson reporting. Well, Avi Hyman is a spokesman for the Israeli government. He explained the objective of the Israeli strike on Rafah.
What happened last night, sadly, there is no moral equivalence between the two things. What happened last night is we went after two high-value Hamas targets, and it appears from initial reports that somehow a fire broke.
The crying kid had a knife or something tucked under his shirt? Wait, what?
Israel says a review.
This back here? How the fuck do you know it's a knife? This could be literally anything. And even if it is a knife, I mean, it could be like a utility knife for cutting shit or doing whatever else. Like he's in Gaza. It's not like he's running around fighting people. What do you?
We'll examine this loss of life. But it's Palestinians.
That sadly took the lives of others. Now, I say it appears to because it is under investigation, and the IDF investigates every accident of this nature to see what actually happened.
Well, Shayna Lowe from the Norwegian Refugee Council in Jerusalem expressed shock at the strike in Rafah.
We are just as shocked as everyone seeing the images coming out of Gaza late last night and early this morning. This is a clear sign of why the implementation of the ICJ's order last week on halting military operations in Gaza in Rafah is so necessary. It's truly unconscionable to think that it's almost 8 months into this, we are still seeing images of.
Did it turn out that every news site misreported the ICJ ruling isn't ordering a ceasefire, or did we get something wrong? No, they misreported it. I'm pretty confident on my read. And the fact that judge declarations are saying as much. It was a pretty shittily written ICJ ruling. Or like it could be that that my interpretation was incorrect and the judges that wrote on it were incorrect. But the fact that there's disagreement amongst the judges, that should be the takeaway about what it even means. It's really stupid.
Women, children, civilians being targeted and killed in such a way.
The head of Gaza's largest United Nations agency, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, says the strikes in Rafah are a reminder that nowhere is safe in Gaza.
I cannot comment on the casualties because we haven't been able to properly communicate with our team on the ground. I saw images. They are deeply disturbing and horrifying. I think we have been clear more than once. There is no safe space in Gaza.
Well, we will go back to Dan Johnson in a few minutes for an update on all the very latest on events there.
Let's see, what else?
ايه مش مخزن سيارة فيها سلاح فيها رصاص وفيها سلاح.
Oh, we've already seen this video.
يكون يعني
بدنا نفرجي اليهود انه احنا غدارين وبيحكوا لنا انه هدول بغدرونا الرسول.
Okay, I don't care about this. This is that one same video. Oh, we've got two things here. Let's see. The Israeli airstrike in southern Gaza's Rafah overnight, targeting 2 senior Hamas officials, but also reportedly killing dozens of Palestinian civilians, will be probed by the top-tier general staff fact-finding assessment mechanism the military announces. The mechanism is an independent military body responsible for investigating unusual incidents amid the war. The probe was ordered by military advocate General Major General... Is it General Major General? Is that really? Or is this guy just... I don't know. Yafat Yamur. The IDF says... The airstrike in the Tel Sultan area of western Rafah targeted and killed the commander of Hamas's so-called West Bank headquarters, charged with advancing attacks against Israel in and from the West Bank, as well as another top member of the unit. Hamas health authorities said some 45 people were killed on the strike, which had also engulfed several tents and shelters where thousands of people were taking shelter in the area. The IDF in its statement says that the strike was carried out based on intelligence information on the presence of the terrorists in the area, and that beforehand it carried out many steps in order to reduce the chance of harming uninvolved civilians, including aerial surveillance, the use of precision munitions, and additional intelligence information. It says that based on these steps, it was estimated that no harm was expected to uninvolved civilians. Military sources, 2 missiles with a reduced-in-size warhead, which were adapted for such targets, were used in the strike. The ADF adds that the strike did not take place in the designated humanitarian zone in the Al-Mawasi region on the coast, where the military has called Palestinians to evacuate to. Military Advocate General, like Attorney General, meaning the military advocate for general purposes and subjects. He's also just a general. Gotcha. Okay. The white zone says humanitarian zone. Yeah, I think Al-Mawasi, is here. I don't know if it's this point or not, but I think they expanded what they considered the safe zone to be so that they could do, what is this thing here? Is this pin Rafah or what does this pin mean here on this right here? That's Rafah. Is this pin here Khan Yunis? Yes, okay. Gotcha. And then I'm guessing this white blob here says safe zone or humanitarian zone or something. It's literally written right there. Yeah, okay. No. That is it. Oh, okay. What is this? Area where reported IDF airstrike and fire took place in western Rafah tonight near the UNRWA facility still had a large amount of IDPs in it. IDP. I don't know what this means. Internally displaced people. Gotcha. Potential geolocation. Possible image of large fire was at Kuwati Peace Camp just north of the warehouses. Oh, he's trying to geolocate? Okay. Some additional reference imagery via Getty Images. Okay.
There was one
What is this?
no, whatever, the beach or whatever, they haven't bombed it, but all this.
What? Hassan Piker subreddit post. Okay. The desert is cold at night. 30-degree temp drop will make you feel cold, even if it's 85 outside. You know we can look up the weather, right? It's not like a mystery. Do we have any evidence of a vehicle? Sounds like a cop-out. There's plenty of incendiary material in a missile, right? I mean, there shouldn't be, depending on how you're weaponeering for a target, right?
Yeah. You should do it? Yeah, I think so. I think I'd be down to go do Destiny's podcast if he's down to come on Steak and Eggs. I gotta respond to him first, but yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Steak
I
and Eggs
gotta
in
talk to everybody real quick.
Austin, or?
All right, let's do INB4 Genshin Defenders hop on to explain why Woo-Wah sucks. Yeah, and I hope they do. No.
Okay. Is there anything else for this? I hate breaking news. It's so fucking boring to me. What? Okay. Bomb blew up. I guess we'll find out more information in the future, is what we say for every breaking news thing. Is there anything else to say about this? What do we got in the subreddit today? Shout out to DGG from Ukrainian Armed Forces. Ah! The DGG community for the Starlink and EcoFlow power station. Wow. The fuck is this? Have you seen the Wendigoon situation? Nope. I saw slurs were involved and I instantly didn't give a shit at all. So I have no idea. What is this?
Be quiet. Sit down. You will lose your seat.
Boston City Councilwoman Tania Anderson just became completely unhinged and vulgar.
They won't vote for you. Fight. Don't fight. What the do I have to do in this council in order to get respect as a black woman? I'm not afraid of anybody here. When I make a mistake, I will be clear. I don't hate you as a white woman. I don't hate you as a white man. I am sick and tired of this body so stupidly racially divided, so afraid, so depraved. People with no faith because they are afraid of their losing their advancement. They're afraid of bargaining. They're afraid of leveraging. These people have, oh my God, I can't even call you cowards because desperation deserves mercy.
I don't know what she's talking about. What? I don't even know if she's being unhinged. I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know if she's...
Even call you cowards because desperation deserves mercy. Here's a redistricting. Fine, we give it to a white woman. Can we all get along? Can we get together?
What was your observation with the reported 36,000 casualty number you mentioned before? Well, the issue that I have now when I think about it is, so this is my understanding. My understanding is we had a 36,000 casualty number or something like this, right? And then somebody came out, was it the Gazan Health Ministry or the UN or something came out and was like, actually, right now, we're going to say that we've got 24,000 confirmed kills or deaths, fatalities, whatever. And there's like 12,000 that we're not sure, we don't have all the information on. Now, a lot of people said that like, oh shit, so actually there's only been 24,000 deaths, okay, of which, 10,000 are ever militant. So it's actually way better than thought, right? So I'm not keen to immediately discredit and say that like, okay, well, all 12,000 of these things over here are absolutely nobody died. I'm sure there's some things that haven't been confirmed or whatever. But man, I was paragraph skimping yesterday. So no, what did I read an article on this yesterday when I was finalizing my Great March of Return article. Somebody can link me something if I'm wrong on this. But when this number got downward adjusted, the problem that I realized, it wasn't the downward adjustment of the number that was fascinating. It was the fact that this downward adjustment was not done equally. It was predominantly women and children that were removed from the number of people dead, and the percentages of men versus women and children killed were significantly altered when this number was downward adjusted. That's really weird. I would expect that an adjustment of the numbers is going to mean you're going to have a roughly equal proportion afterwards. But the fact that the percentage changed is shady, I think. What is the implication? Well, the implication is that the numbers initially were just lied about. UN admits that Hamas, I don't know what the Al-Jameer is. World, Israel, Middle East opinion. A call for genocide. South African Jews blast country's president for chanting from the river to the sea. Okay, I'm guessing this is a pro-Israeli outlet, my guess, but... Numbers are funny things. After shouting about Israel and genocide and touting Hamas's casualty numbers with no verification and obvious flaws, the UN changed its mind this weekend. The old numbers up to May 6, 2024 looked like this. I think Jerusalem Post this is like a center-ish publication, I think we said, right? Times of Israel is center-ish, or does Jerusalem Post go a little bit to the right? I don't remember. Why are you linking to this? Why not just link me to the... God, I fucking hate these fucking circular link bullshit. I know it's just the convention, the way that I write, but if I was writing this, I wouldn't say the United Nations seemingly have the estimated number of women and children. I would say we reported, and then reported would be the hyperlink, not United Nations. Having the United Nations in a hyperlink, and then this going to an op-ed that is on your site, I don't like that convention. I think it should change. I think it's a bad convention. It drives me crazy, but whatever. Anyway, sorry. Let's come to this. After shouting about Israel and genocide and touting Hamas's casualty numbers with no verification and obvious flaws, the UN changed its mind this weekend. The old numbers up to May 6, 2024 look like this. 34,735 dead, including over 9,500 women and 14,500 children. You could, if you wished, extrapolate the number of men and terrorists, but the UN wasn't going to help you. The new numbers on May 8, 2024 are 24,686 people, including 10,006 men, 4,959 women, and 7,797 children. The UN blames the fog of war. So you would expect to see, like, these numbers drop proportionally. That would be my guess, is if you had errors in reporting. But the fact that, like, if we look at the numbers and we see 24,686 divided by 34,735. So it looks like our numbers are dropping by about 29% points, right? About 29%. So you would expect to see like, oh, okay, so then 9,500 women, it would be about times 0.71. That's what you would expect the new reported number to be. About 6,745 women dead. But it wasn't. It was 4,949 women. Oh, that's interesting. So I guess that number was higher than it should have been, or women are grossly overrepresented in the number of people reported dead for whatever reason, but they couldn't find more information about it. And then 14,500 children, we times that by 0.71. Okay, so you'd expect to see about 10,300 children dead in the new number. It's 7,800. Yeah, that's interesting that of all the people reported dead, my guess would be, now we're in conjecture zone. My guess would be that the hardest people to confirm dead, I would imagine would be, I can imagine it going different ways for different people. Like I would say women and children should be easy to confirm dead because they're not taking part in military operations, and like people want to know where the women and children are, so you keep track of them more. But also maybe women and children, if they do die, are more likely to be killed by collateral, like buildings exploding or collapsing, in which case maybe they're harder to keep track of. Men should be easier to keep track of because the IDF is in direct combat involvement with them, so they can check the numbers. But maybe it's harder because you're blowing them up completely, so they're harder to keep. Actually, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I don't know if I would intuitively bias my numbers one way or another to account for different conditions. I guess I wouldn't know. I have no idea. The UN and others. The UN blames the fog of war. Baloney, he says. UN blames fog of war for major overcounting. Oh, Jewish News Syndicate. All of these links, it looks like, are going to be in the Jewish news ecosystem. Okay. What's an acceptable number or expected number / percentage of women and children killed? Well, it depends on what you think Israel is doing. If you think that Israel is indiscriminately bombing and just blowing up whatever, then the number of women, children, and men killed should roughly map on to the population percentage. So if the population is 50-50 men and women, and you think that Israel is indiscriminately bombing the country, then you should expect to see the death tolls as about like 50% women, 50% men, approximately. But if Israel is doing what they say they're doing, and they're being highly discriminatory in their bombing, then even if it's a 50-50 population, you would expect to see it skew more towards who they say they're bombing. Did I leave Progressive Victory? No, I haven't left Progressive Victory. At the canvassing event, I think got canceled because the person won their primary or something. So they're looking for a different event to do. Fuck, where are my internal site logs? Or what's the name of the logs for my site again? Hold on. I know it's technically still breaking news, but do you have any opinion about the Rafah situation? The opinion that you're looking for there is never going to be the one that you want. Like, if accidents happen, I'm going to say it's tragic that an accident happened. If it turns out that they did it intentionally, I'm going to say, well, the people need to be held to account for that. Obviously, there should be an investigation and charges pressed if somebody was engaged in like criminal misconduct or something. But that's not what you really want to hear. When people ask, like, what do you think about this thing? What they're really saying is, does this change your mind 180 on the entirety of the conflict? And now you're going to side with the complete, total other end of this. That's what you're saying. But the only reason you say it is because your opinion is dog shit already. You have no research or foundation in any of this, and nothing would change your mind on the other side. So there's never going to be a singular event or even a collection of events that are tragic, that have civilians dying, that is going to make me completely and totally change my mind about a conflict. That's just not, I would have to be as poorly read as you are into it to have my opinion flip like that. Now, there could be substantive stuff that comes out, like leaked logs from Netanyahu or from some other military people, you know, that point more towards nefarious motivations or something for military operations. But oh, this is the site, true. The opponent of the person you were supposed to canvass for dropped out. Oh, okay, there you go. LOL, so you've assumed the position that it's impossible for someone to disagree with you while being well-read, and nothing short of the idea of saying, let's kill these civilians will change your mind. I think that's exactly what I just said. Yeah. I think I just said that exactly. Wow, you're incredibly intelligent. The caliber of the other side of this conversation is just, whoof, massive. The UN and others ignored the work of John Spencer, blah, blah, blah. Got this. His numbers boiled into this. According to other sources. Here's a question in other terms. How many dead children is acceptable? I think 0 dead children are acceptable, which is why Hamas should surrender immediately. You say that it's a multitude of factors, but I think many of us are asking about a tipping point. Is that not an unreasonable thing to clarify? It is unreasonable, and it's a stupid question, but like the problem is that like this is unironically, it's a facts versus feelings thing, and the feelings are so strong on the other side that it's not even an argument I give a fuck about. I don't even try to make the argument. The reality is that in every war, especially in a conflict like this, there's going to be like a tragic loss of civilian life, and it's going to be like basically unavoidable. It's going to be incredibly difficult, right? So like more people are going to be talking about the fact that 50 some civilians just died in this attack after screeching for 2 months that evacuating Rafah was impossible. There was no way that would never happen. And then 1 million plus people were evacuated successfully. Nobody gives a fuck about that. But now here's an attack where 50 civilians died. We still not 100% sure why. And now it's like, well, we need to reverse course in the entire war. So it's like, I don't even care to like debate or argue this point. There's never in the history, especially not in the same, like a day after, like Russia is shooting like multiple missiles into fucking Ukrainian malls, okay, for no good reason, okay. Yeah, so like no, I'm like the idea like, well, hold on, what about this attack here where 17 more civilians are killed? No, like it's tragic, war is horrible. I would take the other side more seriously if they were calling on Hamas to surrender as much as they're calling on Israel to basically walk away from their right to eliminate Hamas. If and once the conflict ends, do you think a lot more revealing info could come about Hamas / the IDF? If so, what do you think the time frame be like? I can't read your sentence, dude. I'm sorry. You're banned for a day for this. You type better. Jesus. If / once the conflict ends, do you think a lot more revealing info could come out about Hamas / the IDF? If so, what do you think the time frame be like? Would it take a while for that kind of info to drop? Would Israel release more because Hamas wouldn't be a threat? We don't do AAVE here, okay? Isn't it hard to make a case without having access to inside information? Couldn't, for example, Russia claim that they were also targeting someone particular in the mall strike? That's a hard one to believe. Ukraine is a much more open battlefield. I don't believe that they use their cities to stage like military personnel as well. I'm not aware of that. And also Russia doesn't even pretend. Russia's not trying to win a Western PR war like Hamas is. Russia doesn't even waste time. It's like, oh no, like we genuinely thought there were militants. Like they just don't say shit because they know no one's gonna fucking do anything. What do we actually know happened for a fact in the Rafah bombing? Israel probably shot a bomb. I think they've even said as much. The IDF shot a bomb at a tent or something to kill 2 Hamas commanders. And then I guess the contention that I'm seeing from one video on Twitter is just that there was a Jeep with munitions in it, and that Jeep was hit, and then that caused a larger explosion. And then that secondary explosion set fire to a bunch of tents. And then that fire and the damage on the tents is what led to a bunch of people dying, apparently. I'm curious if these revised downward numbers are ever going to be changed also, because these numbers have been ran with for so long. Like we just saw it on that last news report we watched, that it's like, what, 36,000 people are dead? But the, what is the UN actually reporting now for? UN number of dead Gaza. $35,000. Why UN lowered Gaza death toll for women and children. The UN says it revised down its tally of women and children killed over the past 7 months in the Gaza Strip as the health ministry in the territory confirms most, but not all, of the identities of the casualties despite its provision based on identified deaths. The UN maintains the Gaza Health Ministry's overall death toll of more than 35,000 people killed in the ongoing military offensive in Gaza is reliable. The health ministry in Gaza has struggled to keep an up-to-date electronic database with the name, age, gender, and ID number of each person killed in the war due to the scale of deaths and because most hospitals in the Gaza Strip have collapsed and stopped functioning. Hawk, who is the deputy spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, was asked in a briefing Monday about media reports, one of which was shared by Israel's foreign ministers, that said the UN has halved this number of women and children. It had been saying we're killed in Gaza. It's not quite the case, Hawk said. The overall numbers of fatalities that has been tallied by the Ministry of Health in Gaza, which is our counterpart on dealing with the death tolls, that number remains unchanged, he said, reiterating the figure stands at more than 35,000. What has changed, he explained, is that the UN is now only quoting figures for the number of women and children killed based on those who have been fully identified by the health ministry. What's changed is the Ministry of Health in Gaza has updated the breakdown of fatalities for whom full details have been documented. This is also what I said before when I was saying that people are like, oh no, like this stuff has all been third-party, independently verified. Not really. The UN kind of just like takes the numbers given by the Gazan Health Ministry and re-reports that. That's why when people say like, oh, well, when you look at all, and even I've said this in the past, people say, well, when you look at the Palestinian numbers reported, and then you look at the Israeli numbers reported, and then you look at the UN numbers reported, it seems like the Gazan health numbers, and the UN numbers are always closer. So it seems like Israel's a little bit biased. But no, the reality is just that the UN just takes the Gaza numbers at face value and then re-reports those essentially. But to be fair, like that's all really the UN can do. It's not like the UN has a ton of independently operating organizations in the Gaza Strip that can run out and independently verify shit, you know? So, I mean, it's challenging. The UN has two numbers now. They estimate 34K and reported 24K, but there's also weird stuff going on with duplicates being reported, nearly 4K or so. Polarized, what do you mean by duplicates? Link me that, what are you talking about? I support Israel, however, I am starting to get worried that there's no plan in place besides let's bomb Hamas until they're gone. After World War II, the Allies spent 4 years occupying Germany, rebuilding the country. They didn't just hope that bombing them enough would make the Nazis disappear for good. It's a different situation. The biggest cause of concern, I think, at this point should be Hamas reoccupying places that have already been cleared out. That's really bad. Like, they did that huge Al-Shifa hospital raid. That was after they'd already cleared out all of northern Gaza, though. How is it that Hamas is, like, reoccupying destroyed places or captured places? Like, that's not good. Do you think it should be a reasonable idea to pause the war effort if we keep seeing a multitude of strikes with high civilian costs with low justification, if any, from the Israeli government? I don't know. I don't know if you would micromanage anybody else's war like that. If the media widely misreports events, how can normal people understand without a deep dive? For this shit, I don't think you can. What? Okay, why are you linking a tweet with 10 fucking replies? Okay. Why did the Gazan Health Ministry lower their numbers? Wouldn't it be against Hamas's goal? I have no idea. Yeah. Maybe the UN actually did try to fact check, or somebody was like, "Hey, like we need more information for this," and then they were like, "Oh, maybe." I'm not sure. Why is it impossible for fuck. I wish every pro-Palestinian person wasn't fucking retarded. Like, I can't ban all of you, because obviously I'm just gonna have an echo chamber, but like you just can't. I mean, your name is Finkelbrain. Defeating Hamas is supposedly impossible, according to U.S. officials and even allegedly U.S. intelligence. So why do you keep maintaining that Israel must continue until Hamas is eliminated and defeated? Like, can you not ask the question without sounding like a fucking cunt? Is it not possible? Like, is everything like so fucking loaded in your brain? That's Israel's cause for war. I think that they have a good cause for war. I think they have a good aim for war. If they can't do it, then obviously the strategy needs to change. Like, the question is so obviously retarded. Like, defeating Hamas is impossible. Why do you keep maintaining that they have to do it until they're defeated? Obviously, if it is impossible, like, then I would say that they need to change their thing for war. Actually, you are banned. Fuck you. You're fucking retarded. I'm wasting my time. There's better faith people out there. There must be. There has to be. How would a strategy, wait, why did that message get deleted? Oh, retracted. Fuck. Okay, well. Somebody was asking about a strategy of doing a ceasefire, but then doing targeted strikes. You can't do a ceasefire and then targeted strikes. That would be breaking the ceasefire. Okay, don't care about this. Go to 148.
What do you do if you're Israel and you're being accused of genocide at the International Court of Justice, being accused of genocide by some of your own country's leading Holocaust
The ICJ is not accusing them of genocide, but okay.
historians like Professor Amos Goldberg, being accused of genocide by more than half of Democratic voters in the United States? What do you do? Why you engage in genocide denial, of course. You say the numbers aren't real, it's all Hamas propaganda, and you insist that you didn't really kill that many Palestinians. Now, per the health ministry in Gaza, which as the media never fails to remind us, is controlled by Hamas, we have all been reporting that over 30,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, including more than 14,000 children. 2/3 of the victims, women and children. But wait! Last week, the Jerusalem...
I feel like he's just going to repeat the argument that I used a month ago, but hopefully he does it a little bit better. Because my argument a month ago was like, well, just because you can't confirm a death doesn't mean it didn't happen. There could be lots of good reasons why you can't confirm it, and then you can use that as a launching point to talk about all the horrible death and destruction Israel has caused to like hospitals and stuff. But why are the ratios so different?
Jerusalem Post, an Israeli newspaper, which earlier in the war claimed a dead Palestinian baby was really a doll and that the Palestinians were faking it. The Jerusalem Post published this piece headlined, UN seemingly halves estimate of Gazan women, children killed. They pointed to this infographic from the UN for Gaza casualties up to May the 6th, compared to this UN infographic for Gaza casualties up to May the 8th. And so the Israeli PR machine jumped into action. Israel's foreign minister called it the miraculous resurrection of the dead in Gaza and claimed that the UN had reduced its estimate of women and children killed in Gaza by 50%. The Israel War Room account on Twitter posted this graphic. The UN quietly admitted Hamas's casualty numbers are fake. All over social media, pro-Israel accounts trumpeted this shocking new revelation. The numbers aren't that high. Hamas lied. The UN was duped. Of course, none of that is true. The UN did not say that Hamas's numbers are fake. They didn't cut the death toll in half. Nothing, in fact, really changed. Look at those infographics again. Between the 6th of May and the 8th of May, the death toll didn't go down. It went up from 34,735 to 34,844.
Well, but they included this identified part here, right? Is the different thing that they're doing between this and this, right?
But hey, what's 100?
Oh, we don't. Okay, we're not going to talk about that part. Okay.
109 dead Palestinians. Not even worth noticing, right? The only thing that changed in those 2 days is that on May the 6th, the UN provided a number for reported fatalities, over 34,000. And on May the 8th, it provided a number for reported fatalities, again, over 34,000, but also included a new subset of 24,686 identified fatalities. That's it. What they're making a song and dance about, what they're pretending is some smoking gun evidence of a Hamas cover-up, is literally just the difference between fully identified bodies and unidentified or partially identified bodies. That's it. And among the identified victims, by the way, a clear majority, 60% of them, are still women, children, and the elderly. Is that identified bodies? That's it. And among the
Wait, we added another group in there? It's women, children, and the elderly? What is our definition for elderly? Is it 60 and plus? Is it 55 plus? Is it 40 plus? What does elderly count as?
Identified victims, by the way, a clear majority, 60% of them, are still women, children, and the elderly.
Also, yeah, again, children is doing so much work here. But, okay.
Is that something to brag about? Killing women, children, and the elderly? If it was only 24,000 dead, not over 34,000 dead. In fact, it's now actually over 35,000 dead. But if it was 24,000 dead, is that somehow much better, less brutal, more moral? And by the way, both UN infographics make clear that neither the 24,000 nor 34,000 numbers even include the more than 10,000 bodies still missing or stuck under the rubble.
Well, sure, but also keep in mind that's an estimation, right? A body missing, I mean, you don't know if it's there. It's by definition, it's missing, right?
Oh, and just one more thing, specifically on reported dead versus identified dead. Be careful where you go with this line of argument, because I would remind you,
On America.
Yad Vashem, which is Israel's official memorial to the Holocaust, honoring, remembering the 6 million Jewish people who were brutally killed in the Holocaust, lists 4.8 million names of Jewish victims of the Nazis. So should we all become Holocaust deniers and say 6 million people didn't die in the Holocaust because there are only 4.8 million names listed at Yad Vashem? No, of course we shouldn't say that. That would be grotesquely ignorant and offensive. That would be genocide denial, just as this is in Gaza. So that's number one. The UN didn't halve the number of dead women and children in Gaza. That's just a lie that went viral. Number two, it's always worth repeating that the Hamas Health Ministry numbers, aren't actually controversial or unreliable.
Because they're always reported verbatim by other people that have verified them by reporting them.
They're trusted by the people who matter. Don't take my word for it. Human Rights Watch has said, quote, everyone uses the figures from the Gaza Health Ministry because those are generally proven to be reliable.
How?
One of the world's leading medical journals, The Lancet, says there is no evidence of inflated mortality reporting from the Gaza Ministry of Health. The US State Department has repeatedly cited health ministry figures internally with hardly any caveats. And here's the best one of all. Israeli intelligence has made the health ministry's data their main source of information, with one official source telling Israeli journalist Yuval Abraham, quote, I trust the health ministry in Gaza more than the IDF for these statistics.
Why? Just because you use something as a source doesn't mean you report it uncritically, though, right? There's like a difference between those two things. We're getting a little bit into the super nuance of this, but this whole report is so bad. Why not just why is nobody capable of just taking apart why a particular argument is bad without having to go to the most extreme other side? He doesn't even give a better... I feel like my explanation a month ago was a little bit better. Just because something isn't unverified doesn't mean that it's not... doesn't mean that it hasn't actually happened. But for him to be like, who cares if it's 24,000 or 37,000? Why does it matter? What do you mean? Why does it matter if somebody overinflates their death count by 50%? Things can still be tragic, but that also be horrible. But it does matter. Of course it matters if people lie.
Caveats. And here's the best one of all. Israeli intelligence has made the health ministry's data their main source of information, with one official source telling Israeli journalist Yuval Abraham, quote, I trust the health ministry in Gaza more than the IDF for these statistics. Not my words, and Israeli intelligence officials. And finally, number three, let me say this. There has always been one central goal to all this genocide denial and propaganda around lower death tolls: to dehumanize the Palestinians.
Somebody said, do you think the more that civilians die, the more Hamas will gain new recruits? If so, how do you permanently defeat them? I don't fucking know, bro.
Palestinians who have been killed, to dehumanize them. That's the goal. And if you have any doubt about that, let me leave you with this headline from the Rupert Murdoch-owned New York Post last week, the headline to a piece co-authored by one of the most influential liberal defenders of Israel in the United States, Professor Alan Dershowitz. Quote, just how many of Gaza's civilians are entirely innocent?
Damn, Dershowitz now speaking for the entire country of Israel. What's the point of even linking this? Okay.
Can you imagine a headline in any Western newspaper which said, after the massacres on October the 7th, just how many of Israel's civilians are entirely innocent?
No, I can't imagine anybody ever implying that. That would be crazy. I couldn't imagine a single person saying something like that. That'd be wild.
Can you imagine a headline in any Western newspaper which said, after the massacres on October the 7th, just how many of Israel's civilians are entirely innocent? Of course you can't. It would rightly never happen. But hey, Israelis are human beings. Palestinians, apparently, are not.
Wow. Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm wondering about now, and for some reason I didn't think of this before, is why the ratio of reported deaths is so different. On the 6th of May, the UN said that 69% of the reported fatalities were women and children. 2 days later, it said this figure was 52%. The revised down figures, I shouldn't say revised figures, but them including the unidentified deaths, dramatically skew heavily towards women and children. I think that's interesting, but... Is this true? The UN says it's now relying on figures from the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza rather than from the Hamas-run government media office. Was it relying on these before? I thought they usually put in their thing like Gazan health ministry reports. Like that's what they would say. Figures have been released in different ways by the two separate authorities, the GMO and the Health Ministry, and the UN has now switched from quoting the former to the latter to break down demographic data. At the start of the war, the Health Ministry only reported deaths for which details had been registered in hospitals, whereas from November, the GMO included an additional category of deaths recorded in reliable media reports. Is Ali, is that included as a reliable media report? The one where 500 people were killed in a hospital parking lot from an Israeli JDAM? I'm so curious what this sentence means. Or this statement, these 3 words. More recently, the Health Ministry has included these media reports compiled by the GMO, along with an additional category of deaths recorded by family members by filling in an online form. Gaza's Health Ministry is now therefore reporting these figures: deaths recorded in hospitals, deaths reported by family members, and deaths from reliable media reports. Some of these for which information is missing, such as an ID number or date of birth, are included in the overall number of deaths in the Health Ministry figure, but are not broken down demographically. The number of women and children killed is deeply contested because it's often interpreted as an indication of the number of civilian deaths. In a recent interview, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said about 30,000 people have been killed at Gaza, with 14,000 of them being terrorists and 16,000 civilians. He did not provide any evidence for these figures. Keeping precise records of casualties during wartime is challenging, so it is therefore not unusual for the numbers reported to vary, according to Professor Erica Charters, who specializes in the study of war. The initial figure of how many people were killed in Hamas's October 7th attacks was originally put at 1,400 by Israeli authorities, but was later revised down to about 1,200. At the time, the Israeli authorities said the misidentification of some of the burnt bodies was the reason for the discrepancy. Why did the UN change approach? The GMO has consistently given a higher figure for the proportion of women and children in all fatalities than the Health Ministry. On May 6th, the UN reported 34,734 deaths, which were 2 days later. They changed. The GMO says the proportion of women and children killed in conflict is around 70%. The UN's latest report, citing Health Ministry data, says that out of 24,686 fully identified fatalities, 52% were women and children, 40% were men, and 8% were elderly, without specifying whether they were male or female. For the GMO's figure to be compatible with the health ministry's data, almost all of the 10,000 deaths not fully identified by the ministry would have to have been women and children. It's not logically impossible, but it really strains credibility, says Professor Michael Spagat, who specializes in examining death tolls and conflicts around the world. What the fuck kind of specialty is that? What do you do for work? Well, I examine, you know, death reports in wars. Okay.
Can we love each other now? Can we make sure?
U.S. intelligence supposedly says that only 35% of Hamas has been eliminated. It doesn't seem like it's time to change the goal of this operation. I don't know what percentage of Hamas you need to eliminate, or if like getting rid of their major installations is enough, or I don't know. I think the scary part is that if Hamas isn't completely eliminated, then it seems like at post-war, some kind of like redoing the occupation would be basically necessary, is what it feels like. But
sure that black and brown babies don't die? Can we make sure that cops don't kill before people are proven innocent? Can we do that? No, 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 because this body crucifies you first because of allegations. This is not a court. You don't get to crucify people before they're proven guilty. They're innocent until proven guilty. Now, after this, I will look forward to working with you because I have stamina. I believe, as Baldwin said, what you do, not what you say. Your votes here sometimes are racist. You move sometimes in a way that hurts my people. And then when I get up to stand up and talk, all she talks about is black stuff. As you should. I am here to represent every single black woman and man that suffers in the community. God has my back. I am not afraid to not have political or any type of affiliations or connections. I came here, I fear none, no man but my Lord. I came here to serve people. I came here to love.
So this will likely create reoccupation and take us back to square one. What is the purpose of this war? I mean, going back to square one, if square one is no Hamas, is probably preferable to whatever the fuck last year was, no? Okay, I don't know what the fuck. Wharton statistician looks at Hamas's casualty data and concludes they are likely falsifying to maintain a rolling mean and linear growth, and they don't know how to avoid making anomalies obvious to Western analysts. Bro, I don't know if any of this shit... I can't read these fucking... There are 3 days where the male casualty count is close to 0. These 3 days correspond to the 3 highest daily women's casualty count. Is it possible that they were just like reporting in batches or something, or different people record male and female deaths? I don't know. The correlation between the daily men and daily women death count is absurdly strong and negative. The daily number of children reported to have been killed is totally unrelated to the number of women reported. The R2 is 0.017, and the relationship is statistically and substantively insignificant. The graph reveals an extremely regular increase in casualties over the period. Data aggregated by the author and provided by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs based on Gaza Ministry of Health figures. I mean, I guess for this to be more intriguing, does he run this analysis for any other conflict? Is there any other conflict where you get a daily reporting of deaths? The confirmed deaths are further skewed. For example, children are any under 19. The UN adopted this definition for no reason. Literally hundreds of ID numbers are invalid. Wait, no shot. Hold on, I don't believe you. How does UN define child for child killed? The Convention on the Rights of the Child defines a child as a person below the age of 18. This is for the Convention on the Rights of Child. Or the rights of the child. I've seen that claim for the Gazan Health Ministry, not for the UN. Yeah, you would have to link me a source on that. The major stage of the war will be done when the top commanders of Hamas and Gaza are eliminated, but that doesn't mean the IDF's job is done. They will have to be a form of martial law in Gaza to mow the lawn, to take down minor terror cells with special operations which will take years. Just like what happened after the Hamat Magen operation in the West Bank, minor special operations are still taking place in the West Bank to this day. I blame Oslo for it. Wow. Similarly, we should see, this is quoting a tablet article that somebody was linking before. We should see variation in the number of child casualties that tracks the variation in the number of women. This is because the daily variation in death counts is caused by the variation in the number of strikes in residential buildings and tunnels, which should result in considerable variability in the totals, but less variation in the percentage of deaths across a group. This is a basic statistical fact about chance variability. Consequently, on the days with many women casualties, there should be large numbers of children casualties, and on the days where just a few women are reported to have been killed, just a few children should be reported. This relationship can be measured and quantified by the R-squared statistic that measures how correlated the daily casualty count for women is with the daily casualty count for children. If the numbers were real, we would expect R2 to be substantively larger than 0, tending closer to 1.0, but the R2 is 0.017. If you want to talk to a lefty Israeli, I'd love to. I don't care. I'm not looking to talk to any Israeli. I'm good. That thread was posted on our Destiny 2 months ago, and someone responded debunking it. Let's see. Just so you guys know, the entire claim of this article is completely bogus. Weiner's claim that the graph of total deaths by date is increasing with almost metronomical linearity, with the increase showing strikingly little variation from day to day. That is true, but the data will always look that way if you use cumulative sums and uses the numbers of orders of a magnitude of 1,000. The graph uses Hamas's data for 15 days from October 26th to November 10th. So this is what the data looks like when plotted like this. Now, why is there now believable variation? Because this graph uses a number of the magnitude of 100, which is the proper magnitude for numbers in the hundreds, while Weiner uses magnitudes in the thousands. Obviously, we use massive numbers in magnitude, even variations as big as 200 complete to spare. Well, is it? I don't know if I find this compelling. These are still like pretty consistent numbers, no? I think for this argument to be more compelling, I'd want to see this graph spread out more. Show me a bigger date range for reported numbers. Because my guess would be, what the fuck do I know? My guess would be that if we were looking at a report for daily deaths, it would be something like this day 1,000 died, this day 100 died, this day 50 died, this day 800 died, this day 500, 700, 200, 900. That would be my guess for what it would look like. Not like this, but boy, that'd be my guess. Weiner's argument of metronomic linearity, or in layman's terms, whoa, this slope is so smooth, is BS, since with the data set he had, you're always going to get that kind of representation with cumulative sums. Cumulative sums is like this. Sample numbers, day 1. The professor did this, blah, 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 blah. Now draw the slope. If you do the slope with magnitudes of 10s, you'll see variation in the graph still. However, use... Okay, what is the initial... Cool. This doesn't let me fucking open this. Okay. I don't think the shape, I don't think that cumulatively or not, I don't think it matters at all. I think what matters is how well your regression, I think is what you would call it, is how well this line fits all of the data. I think that's the only thing that matters. Now, you could argue that maybe to a layman, this is like misrepresented because he's showing cumulatively, meaning he's adding it on to every single death total rather than showing you just the daily reported deaths. But I mean, you could argue to a layman the graph might be misleading, but it's not. This isn't the data argument, it's looking at the graph. I think the data argument is how well does this line fit? How well does the line fit the data point, right? Or all the data points, right? So what is the... Does he talk about like an R squared here? I'm too lazy to fucking he did in the Twitter? Is it referring to the same guy? Max Mayer, Weiner. No, these are two different things. He's referring to to another tablet article, I think. Hold on. I thought. Yeah, he's referring to this thing. In fact, the daily reported casualty count over this period averages 270 plus or minus about 15%. This is strikingly little variation. This has nothing to do with this picture, right? And everything to do with the line fit to the data. Rage Pope is right. Cumulative numbers mask variation, which is the actual information being used in the regression. I don't think I agree with you. It sounds like you guys are just making shit up. But I could be wrong. We could read through this guy's whole analysis. If he's doing the math where he's like, he's mathing out just the cumulative number, then I might agree. But it looks like he's looking at the daily reporting here. He's looking discretely at the individual daily reporting. He's not taking the entire data set, adding it together and dividing it by the number of days, which is what you guys are implying. That doesn't look like what's happening here. If it was, then this statement wouldn't make sense. Linear regression assumes independence of each input point. A cumulative graph inherently has each data point dependent on the previous one. Yeah, but he doesn't have to do the regression on the graph, right? He could just be doing the graph. I don't know why the fuck he would do the graph like this, but he doesn't. We don't necessarily know if he's doing the regression on the cumulative graph. Do we have access, or I'm sure we could add it somehow, like. You literally have to diff the graph to get stationary data for a linear regression. You literally don't. What are you talking about? The data he's using not diffed is not stationary. A linear regression is invalid. Okay. Why do you think that he has to do, just because he demonstrates something on a graph this way, why do you think he has to do the math this way? What are you talking about? There's no reason why you would have to do that. Because you violate the assumptions of a linear regression and it's meaningless. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. Should see variation in the number. Okay, this is because the daily variation in death counts is because of the variation in the number of strikes and percentage. It's based on a fact about transferability. Consequently, days many women casualties. There should be large numbers of children casualties. On the days where, when just a few women are reported to have been killed, just a few children should be reported. This relationship can be measured and quantified by the R-squared statistics measures how correlated the daily casualty number win is. The daily casualty count for children, if the numbers are real, would expect an RT to be substantially lower than 0, 10 0, but the R. This lack of correlation is the second circumstantial piece. Okay, don't. This is just doing what we saw in the fucking Twitter graph, right? Do daily JKL, yes, I can agree with that. Showing the cumulative sum is intuition pumping the conclusion that it's fake for the sake of making a more convincing article. Yes, I can agree with that. That the graph, the presentation of the graph might be, you could argue, is misleading. Yes. But I don't even know if he is doing a regression also on that data. I don't know, because he doesn't talk about an R-squared here. He's just saying he's going for the daily reported casualty count, and he's saying that the average is 270 plus or minus 15%. Oh, God. I don't want to kill myself. Where? Also, I don't know what the point is of this being like more highly correlated. There's a strong negative correlation. What does this mean? So like the more men that are reported dead in a day, the less women that are reported dead? Wouldn't that make sense or no? His argument is that there should be strongly positively correlated. I don't know why you would argue men and women dying together should be strongly correlated. I do understand why women and children dying together should be strongly correlated. And the lack of correlation here is really weird. Like, I would agree with that. But I feel like this is something you would expect to see, right? That if you're killing combatants or whatever, you'd expect to see more dead men and less dead women. And if you do a bombing that kills a lot of like women and children, you'd see less dead men. That would be what I would assume. Or maybe no correlation, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it should be no correlation, actually. Because then what? You're assuming at some points that you're just like... That makes sense if you're targeting one or the other. If they were indiscriminate, it would be flat. Yeah, actually, that never mind. You're right. That would look fake. So on one day, 500 people die. The next day, 300 people die. but you want to pad your numbers, so you just throw on like 200 women. So then you would expect to see, if you were faking your numbers, then you would expect to see these being highly negatively correlated, right? Because on days we have low deaths for men, you add in a whole bunch of women deaths in order to pad your numbers, which gets you that consistent daily death figure, but it's going to start to negatively correlate women and men, only if Israel is highly discriminate in their bombing though, right? Okay, I understand. Citizen for that. First, the death count reported on October 29th, country numbers reported on 28th, and Suarez implied 26 men came back to life. This can happen because of misattribution or just reporting error. There were a few other days where the numbers of men are reported to be near zero. If these were just reporting errors, then on those days where the death count for men appears to be an error, the women's count should be typical, at least on average. Oh, yes, so now he's going to, okay, never mind, I understand this more. But it turns out that on the 3 days where the men's count is near zero, suggesting an error, the women's count is high. In fact, the 3 highest daily women casualty counts occur on those 3 days. Why would you aim for the same deaths every day? Wouldn't that be more sus? Well, he's kind of making, you can call it a racist argument if you want, but that's the argument that he's making. He's saying that like these guys they're not being sophisticated in their mathematical sabotage because they're just not aware of how fishy it looks to fake your numbers this way. They're accusing the Gazan Health Ministry of being too stupid to do it. Taken together, what does this all imply? While the evidence is not dispositive, it is highly suggested that a process unconnected or loosely connected to reality was used to report the numbers. Most likely, the Hamas ministry settled on a daily total arbitrarily. We know this because the daily totals increased too consistently to be real. Then they assigned about 70% of the total to be women and men, splitting that amount randomly from day to day. Then they infilled the number of men as set by the predetermined total. This explains all the data observed. There are other obvious red flags. The Gazan Health Ministry has consistently claimed that about 70% of the casualties are women or children. This total is far higher than the numbers reported in earlier conflicts with Israel. Another red flag raised by Cello, Eisenberg, and written about extensively is that if 70% of the casualties are women and children and 25% of the population is adult male, then either Israel is not successfully eliminating Hamas fighters or adult male casualty counts are extremely low. This by itself strongly suggests the numbers are at a minimum grossly inaccurate and quite probably outright faked. Finally, on February 15th, Hamas admitted to losing 6,000 of its fighters, which represents more than 20% of the total number of casualties reported. Okay, well. Here you can see daily death counts ranging from 10.7 to 220. Like this in the beginning, I guess, looks a little bit more. This is like what I was drawing on paint. This feels like, yeah, you've got some days that are really bad, some days not much is going on. The regularity here is wild. You see the daily time from 10.7 to 220. What is the, hold on, what does he report? He's reporting from 10:26 to 11:10. This is literally like a 3-week range, basically, 2-week range even. October 26th to November 10th. October 26th here to November 10th here. So he's looking at this chunk of reporting here, basically. I think the largest argument you could use against this article would be that it seems like he starts right when the regularity starts, and he chops out like this whole beginning thing. Now you could argue that they started faking it here, because our regression becomes much stronger here than it does in the first like 2 weeks here. But there theoretically could be other things going on as well. This is incredibly regular. This seems like a line would be really fit strongly to this data here. Hold on one second. He picked that period because that was when the highest quality data was available, including regular gender breakdown. Report integrated on November 11th. What happened between you and Papa Gut? I thought y'all were cool with each other. Aren't we? Are we not? Okay, what else does this guy say? Now draw the slope if you draw. Oh, he's only analyzing this first graph. GMH reported 7,000 dead on October 7th, 28 days after the start. That's an average of 350 per day. On March 11th, GMH reported 67 deaths. It's a vastly larger variation, but nothing ever. Yeah, I feel like one criticism you could make is the guy's. He selected his time period for reporting pretty specifically. But that seems like it might be the strongest argument against it, but wait. This, sorry, fuck. What does this guy say? Or wait, did you just link me a raw death thing? The cumulative death toll as of today is just over 29,000. This was in February 20th. The data changes from October 27th to 28th because that's when the actual invasion into Gaza started, according to the wiki. Okay. Well, there's that. What else do we have for today? Palestinian response to queers for Gaza. Okay. How many approval points could this look gain Biden? Behast. This pic will never be reported by the corporate media. Okay.
You who has no oversight.
Shut up. Jesus. Egyptian forces exchange fire. Egyptian soldiers. Apparently, Egyptian and Israeli soldiers shoot at each other every now and then. I don't know why. It seems a little spooky, but I guess I don't know why. Yeah. Celebrities to unfollow. Okay.
All of us here today.
Man, nice. Glad I have r/Israel Palestine to read. Thank you, guys. Good friend of the stream, IRI has his first video reaching 1 million plus views on YouTube. Oh, shit.
Donald Trump attended the...
Wasn't just booze. 1.36 million views in one day. The crowd also did this to Trump last night. Oh, I see August is titling their videos. Damn. For 1 day's worth of videos. So 8 videos in a day, and we've got 26,000, 124,000, 495,000, 94,000, 416,000. This channel does crazy views. Jesus. $11.8 million views. Probably 12 or 13 million views this month. Nice, good one. Okay. There's an important moment in Rafah that the corrupt media refused to report on. True.
Thousands of Palestinians were demonstrating against Trump's decision
Oh.
to move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to
What? Was this
Jerusalem.
cut from my stream yesterday?
During the day, I followed the protesters, and I can confirm that it was a peaceful protest. Thousands of
I don't want people to forget this Rashida Tlaib Axios interview. She is a frustratingly stupid person outside of even the Palestine context. 4 minutes.
In 2020, you endorsed the BREATHE Act, which is a series of proposals to transform America's criminal justice
Tlaib.
system and
Yeah, I don't know why they spelled the name wrong. Yeah.
create a series of proposals to transform America's criminal justice system and create, quote, a roadmap for prison abolition.
Why are these? I don't like all these Brits that have strong opinions in places in the U.S. about our fucking shit. Okay, fuck this guy.
The BREATHE Act proposes emptying federal detention facilities within 10 years. To what extent have you wrestled
He's Australian, even worse.
with any potential downsides of releasing into society every single person who's currently in a federal prison?
Yeah, I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to just release everybody. That's not
That's
what
what
I'm...
the fact
Yeah,
says.
but did you see how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No,
Wait, what is that sidestep? What? Is this edited? Hold on, I'm sorry.
In a federal prison. To what extent have you wrestled with any potential downsides of releasing into society every single person who's currently in a federal prison?
Yeah, I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to just release everybody. That's not
That's
what
what
I'm...
the fact
Yeah,
says.
but did you see how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No, I know, but the act that you
So we're gonna
endorsed
keep- we're
actually
gonna-
says release everyone
But in
10
10 years, but think about it, who are releasing...
But there are like human traffickers,
Oh, I know.
child sex. So, but
I
you're
mean-
saying, do you mean that you don't actually support that? Because
No,
you endorsed the bill.
No, I endorse the BREATHE Act and looking at federal, the policies and how we incarcerate, absolutely.
But it says in there-
But you cannot just blanketly say, oh, look, she wants, that's not what I'm...
But that's like in plain text, isn't
But
it?
what I'm saying is look at who's in prison now. No, look at the
I
folks that are
understand-
mentally ill, that have substance abuse problems.
But I'm
that
not
have-
disagreeing with you that there are people who
Yeah, but
should
then
be
why
in
aren't
prison.
you asking me about them? You're asking me about the human
No.
traffickers and others that
No,
should
I'm trying to
should
understand.
be able to be
What I'm
held
trying to understand
accountable.
is your proposal is so sweeping. It does release everyone. And what I'm trying to say to you
within 10 years, and obviously there's a process of looking at how can we get away from mass incarceration and move towards care first.
But what I'm trying to understand, because it is such a sweeping concrete proposal, do you believe that there are still categories of people who should be behind bars?
There are absolutely folks that I don't I don't know, because right now the way the prison system is supposed to be like rehabilitatory, it's supposed to be rehabilitation, right?
Right.
No, really, that's how
I understand.
yeah. I don't think there's any rehabilitation happening right now for those that might actually have, and again, a majority, there's so many that have mental health issues, other struggling issues.
Do you think all people can be rehabilitated?
I don't think so. I've been very clear about that.
Okay.
And I only tell you that because as somebody that has worked in the legal field and others, I don't even know if our society would even know how to be able to rehabilitate every single person that wants to harm people, right? But I can tell you that what's struggling for me is seeing that the statistics about so many people that at a very young age that are in there that probably would not have been in there but for the fact that they were struggling with mental illness or other issues within their family life, that I think
Oh, our daily YouTube blip. Sorry, I don't know what the fuck is being said here. I am so confused. Hold on.
No. What I'm trying to understand is your proposal is so sweeping. It does release everyone. And what I'm trying to say to you
within 10 years, and obviously there's a process of looking at how can we get away from mass incarceration and move towards care first.
But what I'm trying to understand, because it is such a sweeping concrete proposal, do you believe that there are still categories of people who should be behind bars?
There are absolutely folks that I don't know, because right now the way the prison system is supposed to be like rehabilitatory, it's supposed to be rehabilitation, right?
Right.
No, really, that's how I don't think there's any rehabilitation happening right now for those that might actually have, and again, majority, there's so many that have mental health issues, other struggling issues.
Do you think all people can be rehabilitated?
I don't think so. I've been very clear about that. And I only tell you that because, as somebody that has worked in the legal field and others, I don't even know if our society would even know how to be able to rehabilitate every single person that wants to harm people, right? But I can tell you that what's struggling for me is seeing that the statistics about so many people that at a very young age that are in there that probably would not have been in there but for the fact that they were struggling with mental illness or other issues within their family life, that I think, they would have been more rehabilitated if we came with care first with it rather than criminalization. And that's just true. And it's not just me saying it. It is experts and others out there saying this is actually, not keeping us safe because folks are getting released and they didn't get the care they needed.
But in your vision, there is still, whatever proportion they are, a small proportion who do need to be behind bars.
Yeah, again, I would have to look at every case individually and figure that all out. I can't just say that. I mean,
but you do believe that prison should still exist?
But I want the American people to know. They need to know this. Everyone in jail is not the same because we always pick the worst of the worst cases. Yeah, but we pick up the worst of the worst cases and we just blanketly.
I agree.
Please, I think that's really dangerous because a lot of my returning residents are in black clubs doing amazing things, youth mentoring right now. I have one that all he does is encourage young people not to enter into gangs and talking about like, this is what happened to me in my life. There are some that, are going back to school and one just became a lawyer. I mean, I just think that to me is much more inspiring than locking everybody up.
Okay, never mind. Okay. I think that she just her focus is that there are a lot of people in federal prisons that shouldn't be there. Did the Breathe Act call for the removal of every single person? That's obviously dumb. I don't know what this even is. Do I care? I don't think I care. How old is this? How old is this video? 2 years ago. Divesting federal resources from incarceration, policing, and ending criminal legal system harms. Investing in new approaches, allocating new money to build healthy, blah, blah, blah. Would it explicitly release everybody if it's ending the federal prison system? Could they be transferred to state prisons? I have no idea. Abolishing ICE too? Yeah, I see. And like reducing DoD funding. Yeah. I need to like plan and schedule a ton of shit. I'm trying to think. I'm probably just gonna do this off stream because I'm just gonna be like not doing anything, looking at this in the background. I realize what I need to do for this. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover or talk about today. Don't care about this. Are you going to go to the Great Pyramids or anything while you're in Israel? Aren't the Great Pyramids like over in... They're like really deep in the West Bank, right? I don't know if I can go that far over. The Chrome extension to load Google Images is bad. Okay. I'll dump it. There you go. You're going to check out, are you going to visit small cities? Right now for our trip, I think we basically got planned, I want to spend about 14 days in Tel Aviv, and I'm just going to go clubbing every night. It's going to be based, okay? Look at the Jordan Peterson stuff for Alex O'Connor. Ba ba ba. $11 hours ago. This was a 2-hour talk.
In the early church.
What did he clip from it?
Well, what does it mean historically that the Spirit of God brooded upon the primordial waters?
God, this shit is so boring. Okay.
Like, what does that mean?
It's like, is this just gonna be another conversation of like Peterson speaking a metaphor, basically, of like, what does it mean when we say that the God is real and that the Christianity had this and that, and like, what do we think and blah, and Carl Jung's the archetypes. It's like, okay, let's see.
Historically, well, no one knows.
I
what
agree.
That means
I don't think
right.
that at least most of Genesis or parts of Genesis are supposed to be. I mean, the Bible is a library, right? It's not a book, and that means that it's going to contain different genres.
That's for sure.
And so when I read,
and some of them are more historically accurate, and some of them tilt more towards that kind of elusive. I don't mean elusive in the. I mean ALLUSIV.
Elusive, yeah, sure.
Right. That elusive and symbolic form that characterizes Genesis 1.
So because there are different genres here, it depends on what story we're talking about. And I think that what I often observe you doing is we might talk about Christianity, and if you aren't comfortable committing to a historical ideal, you'll start talking about the Spirit moving over the face of the waters, which is obviously a much more mythological ideal, and not quite equivocating them, but moving between them too quickly and not delineating them enough. So quite equivocal waters, which comfortable committing to a historical ideal, you'll start talking about the Spirit moving over the face of the waters, which is obviously a much more mythological ideal, and not quite equivocating them, but.
Did he mean to say not quite equal? No, fuck. What's the other? I don't even remember the other word. People fuck this up so much. I don't think he meant equivocation. I think he meant equating them. We've got an equivocation error. Heads up.
But moving.
No, he did mean equivocate. He actually might have meant equivocate. Oh, fuck. Okay, hold on. I need all my brain power for this. 1 second. Before I call somebody out an equivocation error.
That elusive and symbolic form that characterizes Genesis 1.
So because there are different genres here, it depends on what story we're talking about. And I think that what I often observe you doing is we might talk about Christianity, and if you aren't comfortable committing to a historical ideal, you'll start talking about the spirit moving over the face of the waters, which is obviously a much more mythological ideal, and not quite equivocating them, but moving between them too quickly. And
no, he did mean he should have used equating. That was an equivocation error. Equivocate does not work here. No. But it's not a big deal. Who the fuck cares?
Which is obviously a much more mythological ideal, and not quite equivocating them, but moving between them too quickly and not delineating them enough. So if I asked you, do you think that the spirit moved across the face of the waters, and you said to me something like, I think it's still happening.
Right, that is what I would say.
Hey, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
It always happens. It happened at the beginning of time, and it's always happening.
When somebody says, did the Exodus story happen? Did the Jews enslaved in Egypt break free of their slavery and move to the Promised Land across the desert for 40 years? Did that happen? You have also said, of the Exodus specifically, it's still happening.
Yes.
Now, to me, that's far more inappropriate than saying that the spirit is still moving across the face of the waters, because I think what people mean there is, do you believe that these people in that time period actually did this in such a way that, for instance, might show up in an archaeological report?
Well, I think that's the simplest answer to that is probably.
Sure, and that's fine too. But
we don't know. To the degree that there's been archaeological investigations into the kinds of biblical narratives that you've described, the archaeological evidence tends to fall on the side of historical accuracy in relationship to the Bible, quite surprisingly often.
Clearly you're...
Wait, hold on. Just to be clear, my understanding is there's zero historical accuracy. Or I'm sorry, there's zero historical evidence for Jews ever mass exiting Jesus, or fucking Christ, Egypt. There's no evidence for any exodus of Jewish people from Egypt, ever. I don't think that's ever been displayed anywhere, archaeologically, historically. I think the Bible is one of the things. I think the Bible is the only source for that.
You spent more time in Exodus than probably any person I've ever met in person, right? Clearly the story sort of captivates you and you think it's really important and can contribute a lot, right?
Yeah,
of course.
It's infinitely deep story.
I think most people speaking to you already know that you think that, right? And so when they ask you a question, when they suddenly say to you, but do you think it really happened?
Well, what the hell does that mean?
Oh my, what do you mean, what does it mean? How do you not know? These are like fun things to like smoke weed and jerk off and talk about. What do you mean, did it actually factually happen? Like factually in history, were there thousands or tens of thousands or whatever of Jewish people that fled Egypt and crossed the fucking Sinai? Like, did that actually happen? That's pretty obvious what people mean. They're asking you for a material, factual analysis, right? Please explain equivocate to me. Equivocating is when you are trying to obscure the meaning of a particular thing by using something that might be like disingenuously like softer or different generally, right? So like, let's say I say something like, well, last night I kind of got into an argument with my wife and we maybe got a little bit loud at each other. Well, let's say what actually happened was like I screamed at her that she was a stupid fucking cunt. I wanted her to kill herself immediately and then I'm going to murder her whole family, right? Somebody said, hold on, you got into an argument and you were loud? A bit of an equivocation, don't you think? That's equivocating.
Think that, right? And so when they ask you a question, when they suddenly say to you, but do you think it really happened?
Well, what the hell does that mean?
You must know that what they mean is what I was talking about a second ago, which is that sort of...
What? Okay, so fine. So it's easy just to turn this around.
It can be used to say someone is avoiding committing to a specific position, which is what Jordan B. No, shut the fuck up. No, that's not what it means. If I say, hold on, sir, it seems like you're equating between these two things. You're equating murder with self-defense or whatever. You wouldn't say you're equivocating murder with... I mean, like, you could, but it would be like a stretch and it would be a weird thing. You would just say, like, it feels like you're equivocating on the murder. It feels like you're equivocating. You wouldn't say equivocating between two... I don't know if I'm not sure if I've ever seen equivocation written properly like that, where you're equivocating between two things. It's the second definition here. We're not talking about the definition. We're talking about the use of the word. I don't think you would generally say you're equivocating between these two things. I just don't think you would say you're trying to equate these two things. And if you plug equate into the sentence, it works a lot more cleanly. It works completely 250. Like,
you aren't comfortable committing to a historical ideal, you'll start talking about the spirit moving over the face of the waters, which is obviously a much more mythological ideal. And not quite equivocating them, but moving between them too quickly.
You're moving between two ideas too quickly, and you're equating this mythological idea with the actual physical reality. You're equating the two of these things, right? And you're moving between them too quickly. That makes perfect sense. You don't move between two things too quickly that you're equivocating, like in a very, very, very abstract sense, maybe, but equate is the word that we're looking for. Equate perfectly maps onto the entire rest of the sentence. You're stretching really, really, really hard here to try to say like, oh, equivocate is a better choice. That's, no. Because in that case, if that's what you want to say, you could say that you could almost use equivocate in every place you use equate, if that's how you want to say it, right? Like, you're equating murder with self-defense? How could you do that? Like, well, you're equivocating murder with self-defense? Well, you kind of are, because you're making one thing sound not as bad as the other. Like, but that's just not, yeah.
And not delineating them enough. So
the burning bush.
I don't need to know exactly what happened. What I and they suddenly say to you, but do you think it really happened?
The point of what Peterson is doing is to introduce ambiguity, I think. Yes, and he's introducing ambiguity by equating a physical and a non-physical thing. That's what's happening. Yes.
Well, what the hell does that mean?
You must know that what they mean is what I was talking about a second ago, which is that sort of...
What? Okay, so fine. So it's easy just to turn this around. It's like, okay, what exactly happened in your historical account when Moses encountered the burning bush?
I don't need to know exactly what happened. What I need to know is...
I'm not asking you specifically or attacking you for that.
What I need to know is that if I sort of went to the Egyptian desert at sort of the time that the story is alleged to have taken place in history, would I see a mass movement of Israelites from Egypt into the Promised Land? Would I see people with feet walking through the desert, leaving footprints?
Well, let's take it apart rationally. So,
oh my God, Alex just asking, like, materially, what do we see? Like, what is the material, physical reality of what we see?
Also understand that when someone's asking that, and like, even if you don't like the question, you must understand what someone's asking.
Oh yes, well, I understand many of the things that they're doing simultaneously.
You must also...
How did it feels like somebody introduced Peterson to philosophy like last week, except for years and years, where every single question, like, did you go to the store yesterday? Well, now that's an interesting question. Yesterday? Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, like Monday, Tuesday, today's Tuesday, Monday. Well, it's an interesting question if you really think about it. And when I go somewhere, well, go where? Well, I was in Florida and I was still in Florida when I went there. Have I really moved at all? Or do you mean is my position in the universe changing? I'm like, did you physically walk to the fucking store and go inside and buy shit? Now, when you say buy, some people, consider the stealing of profits from workers to be theft. And can I truly buy with something that I've never actually earned on my own before? Is it not a form of theft to transfer the theft from the worker to the store owner when I purchase things with dollars earned? Like, it just feels like his answer to everything is just the most ridiculous. Can you not contextually understand a single thing that's ever being said to you? Jesus.
I'm not asking you specifically or attacking you for that.
What I need to know is that if I...
Like, we're not engaging in an... Like, there are ways that you could meaningfully interrogate presuppositions. Oof. There are ways that you could meaningfully interrogate presuppositions to have an interesting conversation, right? An 18-year-old tells you, I just got out of a 3-year relationship. I feel like my life is over. I think I was in love with her. Well, hold on. You're 18. What do you mean when you say in love, right? It might be good to actually introspect on that, right? You're young, how you feel about a particular, right? There are times when it's good to critically analyze the foundations of either concepts or even words that we're using, where it makes sense. Like, okay, yeah, right? But there are other times where it's just like pretentious, and the purpose isn't like the purpose for interrogating concepts should be to gain insight, not to obfuscate, right? The purpose should be that when I'm asking these questions, it's because it's actually getting us more insight into the question itself, not like I'm asking the question just to obfuscate and make the conversation meaningless. It's
sort of went to the Egyptian desert at sort of the time that the story is alleged to have taken place in history. Would I see a mass movement of Israelites from Egypt into the Promised Land? Would I see people with feet walking through the desert, leaving footprints?
Well, let's take it apart rationally. So,
but you also understand that when someone's asking that, and like, even if you don't like the question, you must understand what someone's asking.
Oh yes, well, I understand many of the things that they're doing simultaneously.
You must also understand that when you then say it's still happening, people just go, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, well, I would say that's not my problem.
But
now, when he says that's not my problem, it is your problem. Remember, the whole point of language is to make things understood to other minds. Otherwise, there's literally no point in language. You're uttering meaningless sounds, right? If I walk around and go, blah, 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 right? And I'm just saying things all day that mean nothing. I'm invoking the concept of like a private language. Like, oh, well, what do these things mean? Nothing. Well, I mean, they mean things to me, but not to anybody else. Okay, then it's meaningless. But in that case, why bother speaking to anybody else at all? The only reason we speak is to, invoke thoughts or evoke thoughts from other people's minds, right? I utter words so that other people think of things in response to what I'm saying. That's the only reason. If nobody can understand what you're saying, then you're engaging in like a fruitless, pointless, absurd, I guess, exercise of just uttering meaninglessness.
It becomes a problem when you understand that someone's asking a quite banal historical question.
Yeah, but you don't get to do that.
But why not?
Because the stories that you're dealing with aren't banal.
I agree, but like...
so you can't reduce them to something banal, even if it's, what would you call it, even if it's reassuring. This actually happened. Well, then what do you do with the burning bush?
So
this actually happened.
One comparison I would make is between this and talking about fiction.
Can somebody, I don't know what he means when he says that. When he says that the stories are banal.
So
even if it's, what would you call it? Even if it's reassuring, this actually happened. It's, well, then what do you do with the burning bush?
So
this actually happened.
One comparison I would make is...
I don't understand. Is there like other definitions for this word? Repeated too often, overfamiliar through overuse. I don't know how that plugs in here at all, but okay.
Between this and talking about fiction more broadly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you got it right earlier. I would say, you noted that the stories in the biblical library leap across genres.
Yes.
Right? Well, we know this because sometimes they're poetry and sometimes they're song. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and so in any given story, there's going to be historical account plus mythological overlay. And, you have to be a discriminating reader to kind of see what's different. And you don't just get to say, well, all the mythological symbolism is historical reality. It's like, no, it's not.
But here's the thing, for example. So like take a piece of trivial fiction like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Right? We say like, okay, did that happen? Now,
oh, God. Peterson isn't going to give an answer to this question. He's going to say, well, I don't know. Did it? Did it happen? I mean, we see it on film. We can see the movie. We can watch it. So something happened.
I think that what you'd probably say is something like, well, I don't think the events literally occurred, but I think that they obviously get at something that's sort of perennially true about human nature.
Exactly.
But then suppose I said
to you, so they happened. They existed as a pattern.
But there's a scene in Forrest Gump when I think he meets the president. Is it JFK at the time? I think he goes and meets John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And so I said to you, well, is JFK like that specific part of that story? Is it true that JFK was the president?
Right.
And you would probably just say, yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say anything more complicated. And even though the subject as a whole, like, is Forrest Gump true? Is Hamlet true? That's a complicated question.
Very.
But specifically, when I say, but interestingly, there's this...
I disagree. That's not a complicated question. No. If you take a collection of things and you're asked to make a conclusion about all those things, if only one part of those things is false, I think you would say that it's not true, right? If I tell you a story that Barack Obama was the president of the United States and Barack Obama was a black man and Barack Obama had a wife and Barack Obama could fly with the lift produced by his massive arms, would you say that whole statement, would you say that statement is true? The answer would be no. That is not a true statement. No, absolutely not. Logically, right? Logic, capital L, whatever. Logically, the statement is not true because there's some element here. You've incorporated too much into it and parts of it aren't true, so the whole statement itself can't possibly be true, right? But if you want to, but I mean, when people talk about is Forrest Gump true, they're not asking if some smaller part of it is true. They're asking if the entirety of the thing is true. The answer would just be no. Now, if you want, you could have an interesting conversation about breaking things down to their elements and which parts are true and which parts aren't true, and what does it mean for something to be true here, right? Like if something happens in a film and it's shown on film and somebody asks, did that actually happen? Well, when they say that, what are they actually referring to? Are they referring to the thing on film? Well, of course that happened. It was recorded. Are they referring to the event that the thing on film refers to? Well, yeah, of course, it's referring to another event. Are they talking about, did the actual event that it referred to happen in the exact way that it was shown on film, right? There's a more complicated way you can break down that in particular, but when you're talking about a macro level thing, you're incorporating a lot of other things. If anything isn't true, you would just say the thing itself is not, no? That would be my...
Right. And you would probably just say, yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say anything more complicated. And even though the subject as a whole, is Forrest Gump true? Is Hamlet true? That's a complicated question.
Very.
But specifically, when I say, but interestingly, there's this little point I want to make in this broader discussion. Do you think that JFK was actually the president? You say yes.
Why do you think it matters to people? I don't know. These are ancient accounts.
Maybe that's the biggest problem. Maybe that's the biggest problem that you have with people who are asking these questions.
It is. What point are you trying to make here? So the point is, I know what the point usually is the people who are asking the question believe that true unerringly means objectively happened in history, like the things that we're seeing right now happen.
Yeah.
It's well, no.
The problem, interestingly enough, maybe is it almost feels like, I don't know if he does it, it almost feels like Jordan Peterson connects a moral truth. This is similar to the bubbles thing or whatever the fuck, where people are connecting things, premises with conclusions or whatever. It feels like Peterson, to some extent, connects the moral value of whatever message he gets from a metaphor or allegory. He connects that to the underlying factual reality. So when somebody questions that factual reality, he thinks that they're necessarily discarding the moral message from the allegory or the metaphor. So when somebody says to Jordan Peterson, I don't actually think that Jews did Exodus from Egypt. I don't think they did cross that. I don't think that happened. What Peterson is hearing and what he's emotionally feeling is, I don't believe in the moral story of Moses wandering the desert for days. I don't believe I don't believe in the morals of that story. I don't believe in the messaging of that story. I don't agree with your moral conclusions from that story. That's what he's hearing. So he has to fight on that premise one. He has to fight on that factual ground because he can't concede any of that. So instead he has to obfuscate. Well, when you say Jews in the desert. Well, what desert? What Jews? What time period? When you say happened, what do you mean by happened? And when you say evidence, he has to fight on every single thing because his moral truths that he's fighting for here are like directly connected to whatever underlying metaphysical understanding he has of the events, right? Where metaphysical is like how we define like, what things, what are like the materially real things in the fucking world or whatever. Like these things have to be real events because he's deriving moral truth from them. And if the things, like it can't be stories. Like Jordan Peterson seems like a guy who we're like, the Garden of Eden, well, that's just like an allegory or that's just a metaphor. He's like, no, hold on. That story needs to be real. If it's not real, like metaphors, I guess like ironically enough, it's like he's destroying allegory in his mind. Like allegory, nothing can be allegorical. It can't be real. There can't be, I'm sorry, it has to be real. There can't be metaphors. They have to be real. You can't tell stories. They have to be real things. They all have to be real because if they're not real, somehow the moral meaning is lost or something, I guess. I don't know. That's what it feels like he's saying, which is absurd. Ugh.
That I find puzzling, for example, about Dawkins, because Dawkins formulated the idea of meme, which is, by the way, the same idea as archetype. It's exactly the same idea, except he just stopped. It's like, okay, there are memes. They're selected for. Okay, selected on what basis exactly? Does that mean there's a hierarchy of memes? Are the memes that are conserved more likely to be, what would you say, viable organisms? And if they're viable organisms, are they microcosms?
This is really interesting in terms of the survivability, because there's a point, I've spoken to Richard Dawkins, well, a number of times, but twice on my podcast.
It's not interesting. Nothing Jordan Peterson says is interesting. It's just like, it's needlessly pedantic, like quibbling and equivocating and just like the most pointless. I just, there's nothing of value. I would be curious if there's any conversation of value where Peterson is actually interrogating these beliefs ever. Like, it seems like Peterson feels like a horoscope that you'd read in Vogue, where you read something and it's vague enough that you can basically interpret whatever you want out of it and then feel like it's really speaking to you. That's what Peterson feels like when he speaks like this.
Spoken to Richard Dawkins, well, a number of times, but twice on my podcast. And the second time, somebody pointed out to me that there might be a point of agreement between you two that has been overlooked, which is that, I don't know if you've ever come across the evolutionary argument against naturalism. Or the.
Do you think that Alex has to say this, or Peterson just shuts down and makes it a short discussion? Oh, yeah, I'm sure Alex is trying to be polite because he doesn't want to, like, have Peterson blacklist or something.
The argument from reason, the idea that if you're a materialist, you can't trust your reasonable faculties. So Alvin Plantinga formulated this very well, very, very geniusly, I think, in saying that if you believe that evolution by natural selection happens materially, what does natural selection select for? Survivability. So if you're a materialist, that means that the very rational faculty that you're using right now evolves not to be sensitive to truth, but to survivability.
True. There could be entire parts or aspects of the universe that you're not capable of perceiving because those particular things don't actually help you navigate the world in a survivable way, right? This is the whole, what did I call this stupid shit? Humans aren't truth-seeking machines. We're not. Our bodies aren't built to seek truth. Our bodies are built to survive and pass on our genes. Now, generally speaking, truth and survivability seem to line up pretty well. If you think a thing is true, it gives you the ability to navigate the environment in a more favorable way. But there could be more abstract thought where that begins to diverge, right? Where sugar tastes good, but it's not good for you because it's not like an immediate punishment or whatever to it. So that like the consequence of believing in an untrue thing are more separated. But yeah.
Yes, that's
and
right.
if that's the case, well, why do you believe in the truth of evolution? Well, because you've been rationally convinced of it. But the thing that you've just assented to, the belief itself has just undercut the process by which you think that belief.
Look, there's a whole.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but I guess it could be depending on how fundamental you go. If you've been convinced that a particular thing is true, but your entire idea of truth is really just an evolved mechanism for passing on your genes, how can you theoretically, I guess if you go fundamental enough, yeah, technically every single part of your epistemic grounding is undermined by survivability because there could be some foundational epistemic belief that would be contrary to your surviving. And then that would be, but you'd never be able to perceive it because naturalistically your body isn't evolved to, theoretically, I guess. But who cares? That I feel like at that level you're getting into like ultimate skepticism. You've essentially arrived there. Fuck, no one cares. Fuck that.
The New England pragmatists figured this out in like 1880.
Yeah, no, I think this is fascinating. I think it really is just
It is.
It's exciting. It's novel.
That's for sure. That's for sure. It's actually a point where Darwin and Newton do not come together.
How do you mean?
Well, the Darwinian definition of true and the Newtonian definition of true are not the same thing.
What is a Newtonian definition of true? I don't even know what that means. Newtonian definition of truth. Did Newton do a lot of like epistemology? I have no fucking idea. Darwinian truth and Newtonian truth. Newtonianism. Oh, the wiki. Actually, hold on. We should be doing Newton's philosophy. True. I don't think this is getting us anywhere. He probably just means Newtonian is like deductive truth and Darwinian is inductive truth. He means empiricism. Okay. All right. Okay. His broad conception of the universe is being governed by rational and understandable laws laid the foundation for many strands of Enlightenment thought. Okay.
Come together.
How do you mean?
Well, the Darwinian definition of true and the Newtonian definition of true are not the same thing.
Here's the thing. You had a conversation with Sam Harris. You've had a number, but one of them, I don't think it was a live event. I think it was before that. You're talking about truth.
Yeah,
and
it was a very
trying
awkward second talk I had with him. I was extremely ill.
It was awkward to listen to because it felt very much like, and I remember at the time thinking, what is this Jordan Peterson talking about? Like truth is like Darwinian. Truth is about like survivability. What do you mean truth is
true the way an arrow flies?
Yeah, right. And now I asked Richard Dawkins about the evolutionary argument against naturalism. Yeah. I said, well, how can you know that what you believe is true? And he said, because believing true things makes me more likely to survive.
Hey,
boy.
That's who said that? That's a naive assumption because you can't really know because the whole point of this line of inquiry is to invoke ultimate skepticism. So an ultimate skeptic is somebody who can always say why a million times, right? Oh, well, I believe that things are true because I can perceive them with my senses. Why? Why do you trust your senses? Well, I mean, because well, I don't know, because I use them. There's no other way for me to communicate with the outside world. Why do you communicate with the outside world? How do you even know you are? Well, I don't know. Fuck. I mean, I think, therefore, I am. Like, if I don't know, okay, well, how do you know it's not a demon revealing the universe to you? Okay, well, I don't know. Fuck. Well, why? Like, this is like ultimate skepticism is you can undermine theoretically every single position by infinitely inquiring and looking for some solid, like, unshakable foundation to some, system of epistemology, which is probably impossible as humans. So there's like a few assumptions you've got to make to get shit off the ground. But I mean, it's a fruitless endeavor because nobody wants to talk to an ultimate skeptic. There's no point, right?
He said, because believing true things makes me more likely to survive.
Hey, watch where you go with that.
I didn't catch it at the time, but I thought to myself afterwards. It was one of my commenters on Patreon actually had mentioned. He was listening to it, and I said, but okay, maybe, but sometimes it's at least possible that something that's false helps you to survive. The rustling in the bushes, believing that that's a lion every time or a tiger, even if it's not, that helps you to survive because that one time that it is, you're still going to run away, and it costs you nothing to run away when it's not a tiger. So believing it's a tiger, even when it's not, is going to help you to survive.
That's why we have a negativity bias.
Yeah, and Dawkins, of course there are some circumstances where believing something false could be beneficial to survival. And I said, well, how do you know that 2 + 2 = 4 is not one of those? And it seemed as though he was just saying that believing that would not be advantageous to our survival, which might well be true. But if that's the case, then suddenly I'm listening to
If that's the case, you have no way of perceiving that, right? Because it's an ultimately skeptical position. You're saying that the subjectivity of the observer can never perceive a thing as being absolutely true or not, because what you think is true is just stuff that helps you survive. You're undercutting your entire foundation of understanding the world. But again, who cares? Fuck this.
What you're saying about truth being more sort of Darwinian and related to survivability, and I think maybe you two would agree there. And I think, well, why is it that when you sit down with Richard Dawkins, you find it difficult to have a conversation with each other? And
well, I think it's partly because we don't know each other very well.
That's
right. And so, and also, there are things he knows that I don't know, and there are things I know that he doesn't know. Now, I would say, in my defense, that what would you say? I'm more aware of the things he knows that I don't know than he is of the things I know that he doesn't know. Right. So, for example, as far as I can tell, Dawkins doesn't know anything about the Jungian tradition of literary interpretation, and that actually, if you're going to talk about religion, that's actually a fatal flaw. Right. So, and he's called me, for example, drunk on symbols. It's like, well, the imagination is a biological function, and it has a structure and a purpose, and it has its own logos, its own intelligible order. And
yeah, but I mean, people can also be schizophrenic. Like, what this?
And if you're not aware of that order, that doesn't make me drunk on symbols. It just means you don't know what you're talking about.
Now, that frustration that you appeal to there, when you hear Richard Dawkins I think Terry Eagleton said that listening to Dawkins on theology is like listening to somebody write a book about biology whose only knowledge of the subject is having once read the Great British Book of Birds. And okay, fair enough.
But that actually turns out to be a real problem. And it's a problem with regards even to the meme idea, because you don't have to extend Dawkins' work very far to understand that religious stories are memes.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a hierarchy of memes, and some of them are very functional.
But then here's the thing, like that frustration that you're sort of throwing in that direction, I think people throw towards you when you say, well, religion, you don't have to look very far to see that religion is a meme. Well, without further clarification, and of course there's going to be it, you can understand why to somebody first listening, that sounds almost atheistic. Well, religion is a meme. No,
right?
Religion is not a true historical account of, the history of the universe.
It's not a true historical account.
It's a meme. Now, when you say that the resurrection of Jesus.
Well, what does it mean historically that the Spirit of God brooded upon the primordial waters?
5 minutes.
Like, what does that mean historically? No one. Oh, then what do you do with the burning bush? This actually happened.
One comparison is something that's sort of perennially true about human nature.
Right, exactly. That's right. So they happened. They existed as a pattern.
But there's a scene in Forrest Gump when I think he meets the president. Is it JFK at the time? I think he goes and meets John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And so I said to you, well, is JFK like that?
The setup to the Exodus story that strike me as very, very plausible historically. So, for example.
Okay.
Some of it is, but
for a Christian, when asking that, it's probably because for them they have an understanding of
ancient accounts.
Maybe that's the biggest problem. Maybe that's the biggest problem that you have with people who are asking these questions.
It is. And like, what point are you trying to make here? So the point is, I know what the point usually is the people who are asking the question believe that true
that's just what
unerringly means.
I also hate it when people do this, and I hate watching people do this. It happened on the WIC panel. Every time I see this, it drives me crazy. When people are trying to set up an argument, so they ask you a question, but instead of answering honestly, you're trying to head off the argument, right? So like somebody says, I should be able to kill somebody. I should be able to kill somebody if they are impeding, my path in life. And then somebody asks you, okay, well, let's say theoretically, you know how sometimes people can walk across an interstate, and the person's like, no, that never happens. And it's like, wait, what? Okay, well, like, what if they're walking across the street, right? Would you, sometimes you drive and you've got to take your kid to school to make sure your kid's to school on time, right? No, my kid takes the school bus. Okay. Okay, what if you, there's like an emergency or a hospital? I would call an ambulance. Like, okay. Like, you can tell, they're already trying to head off where they think the argument is going, so they don't even engage with any of they're just trying to, like, because they know that you're trying to trap them. They feel that you're trying to trap them, so they want to, God, I hate that. It drives me absolutely fucking insane when people won't, like, even start to go down a road with you. Oh, God.
Objectively happened in history, like the things that we're seeing right now happen.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, that's not what those stories are like.
For me,
some of it is, but
for a Christian, when asking that, it's probably because for them they have an understanding of Christianity that requires believing in that kind of truth. For me, and the reason why I hope that, like, me asking these questions will be less frustrating to you is because I have no desire for that. I don't care about that. I'm genuinely just interested in what you think.
Yeah,
and so my desire to know whether you think Exodus historically happened goes no further than a point of interest about your beliefs.
Well, so there's.
Wait, is it going to engage with that? We have 2 minutes after that. Is it going to actually? So Alex saying, I just want to know. I'm just looking for the fact of the matter here. Do you materially think there was a Jewish exodus from Egypt? That's all I want to know. That fact of the matter. That's all I want to know. I'm not trying to make a moral judgment. So Alex is trying to separate out all the other shit. I just want to know that one thing. Let's see what he says to this.
You think Exodus historically happened goes no further than a point of interest about your beliefs.
Well, so there's elements of especially the setup to the Exodus story that strike me as very, very plausible historically. So
that is not at all answering the question. That's equivocation right there, by the way. Do you think that this thing happened? The start of it, there are things that strike me as plausible. What the fuck are you saying? Do you think it happened or do you think it didn't happen? Now you're going into like a whole thought process that you must have done a long time ago to arrive at the conclusion if you think it happened or didn't happen. Just tell me if you think it happened or didn't happen. But maybe he's like, maybe he'll talk through his whole answer, to be fair. I'm kind of cutting him off.
For example, the Jews before the Pharaoh of that time were under the guidance and protection of Joseph and the previous Pharaoh. And they regarded...
This topic is the entire 2-hour conversation? Holy fuck, kill me. Where do you rank Alex compared to other commentators / philosophy influencers? I don't know. I don't know enough philosophy to formally debunk anybody. I don't think I've ever heard Alex say anything dumb before, though. I feel like most of what he says is pretty agreeable. But for whatever that counts. But
the Israelites as benefactors, because Joseph had helped save the kingdom, and his people were welcome. But that was forgotten. And so the new Pharaoh and the new Egyptians regard the appallingly successful Jews as destructive interlopers, and they make them slaves. It's like, well, can you believe that? It happens all the time. Sure. It's happening right now. So it's
like this thought process, I say Jungian, but I really don't even know anything about Jung. I only know what I have absorbed from Peterson's whatever of him, so I don't know what the fuck. But it's interesting here that like the thought process that Peterson gives is this is the thought process of a crazy person. But basically, well, I've seen a pattern. There's a pattern that plays out here where one side wants to do something bad to the other side for reasons that are understandable. And then there's some Platonic universal form of this that is true and real. So, you know, if I give him any story that fits with this universal definition or this universal concept that he's identified, he should readily believe any story like that. So if I come up to him and I say, hey, did you know that in the year 1750, Kurdish people were so successful that the Turkish Ottomans tried to suppress and destroy that society? Then Peterson's answer, like following from this logic, is, well, you know, wow. Well, you know, wouldn't that be the case? A successful people trying to be destroyed, minority trying to be destroyed by an oppressive regime? That's totally surprising. And leftism, right? Like that, like this is, it's not a good way to factually or materially understand anything. There is no material understanding here. He's taking like concepts or stories, and then he's trying to project. It's like one of the most, it's one of the biggest follies of like human irrationality is to do this. But what, I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about this.
Slaves. It's like, well, can you believe that? It happens all the time.
Sure.
It's happening right now. So it's very plausible.
In this particular case, saying it's very plausible. It's like saying something like, well, yeah.
Like that doesn't speak to the plausibility of that at all. No, that's not plausible, right? Yesterday, my parents dropped dead. Well, you know, I've heard this happens before. You know, this happened to somebody. That's very plausible. Like, no, what? Just because a thing has happened in the past, or just because a narrative or a particular story or particular things doesn't mean that it's plausible that it, unless your standard for plausibility here is just like conceivably possible.
All the time.
Sure.
It's happening right now. So it's very plausible.
In this particular case, saying it's very plausible. It's like saying something like, well, yeah, it could have happened. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, which is nothing.
Well, I don't know.
So when
you don't know, then why? Then are you making any? Do you have any truth claims whatsoever that you would be willing to make about any of these events, or are you completely, you know, in the dark or agnostic, or like, well, I don't know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't? That clearly that's not the case, right? Obviously that's not the case. It seems like he's staked out a pretty hard position on the fact that it did happen. That's what it feels like, at least to me, intuitively, emotionally. That's what it feels like.
In this particular case, saying it's very plausible. It's like saying something like, well, yeah, it could have happened. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
So when
I don't think anybody knows.
So when somebody asks, did the Exodus really happen? That word "really," when they say,
yeah, if I just really is the crux.
If I said, did the
it's not a crux. Really is obviously referring to something like material or physical. It's not a crux at all. It should be elucidating. Like it should be an obvious thing. It's obviously they're asking about a material fact, right?
The Exodus really happened. That word "really," when they say,
yeah, if I just really is the crux.
If I said, did the Exodus?
Why do you think he's so reluctant to stake a position? Probably because he knows it's bullshit, but he feels like it undermines some other moral message, so he just pretends to. That's why I'm saying, like, good introspection or good interrogation of beliefs should yield some level of insight, but instead for Peterson, it's exclusively used as a tool to obfuscate. Right now, I say that a little bit unfairly because it's possible that at the end of this long conversation, he wraps all of this together in, some 20 or 30 minute back and forth where he's like, well, because I said this is what I mean by this, and that's how I have an understanding of this, blah, blah, blah. I seriously doubt it, though, because I don't think I've ever seen him do that ever in my entire life, but...
Somebody asks, did the Exodus really happen? That word "really," when they say,
yeah,
if I just
really is the crux.
If I said, did the Exodus happen? And I'd understand why you would then say, well, you've got to understand what kind of story this is. Fine.
Yes.
But then if somebody says, yeah, but did it really happen?
Well, which parts of it?
Even if they're not expressing it very well, like what they're getting at there is they're trying to emphasize the historicity. They're trying to say, yeah, but did it historically happen? Probably is what they mean by the word "really" there.
Right, but the thing is, it speaks of their. See, they have a problem. Is that Christians who ask that have a metaphysics that's not Christian.
Mm-hmm.
A metaphysics that's not Christian. You're implying that event then could have never happened. When you talk about metaphysics, you're only talking about like the nature of like physical things in reality, or like the nature of things in reality, right? Most Christians have a metaphysics that for the most part is going to map on identically to most humans generally. Like there's going to be some difference in maybe their understandings of like what a soul is, or their understandings of what things that like are the beginning of time, like the Big Bang or stuff like that. Unless you're talking about like, Christians that are 6,000-year-old young earth creationists or whatever. But generally the metaphysics of Christians and non-Christians is going to line up like fairly closely. Maybe transubstantiation for Catholics is a bit different, but like these are like they're pretty niche things. Why is Destiny as butthurt with Peterson as he is with Trump? Did I miss some? What are you talking about? Who's being butthurt here? Are you okay? Do I want to? This is such a waste of time. God, I hate listening to this guy talk. Oh, I shouldn't do this. Where's the transcript? Loading.
Let me compare trolley to a different kind of case. This case.
Oh, 7 minutes ago. Fresh mic clip.
This is called hospital. So imagine that you were a surgeon. You're not on a trolley.
Chad, the reason why I can pre-watch this shit without ever watching these videos is because I took Philosophy 101 and I got an A. I'm not Destiny, okay? I didn't learn my philosophy from Wikipedia. I took philosophy classes. So
is there even a class called Philosophy 101? Is there, what would it be? Is that like a historical review of what? I have no idea. I didn't think Philosophy 101. Maybe there is. Phil 101.
I know what the philosophy professor is going to say because I read the fucking books and I did the fucking homework.
How much homework and studying? What are you learning in Philosophy 101? I feel like you're probably learning like a table of contents of philosophy. Like, what do you... This course introduces students to the foundational theories and methods of philosophical analysis, emphasizing critical examination of some fundamental principles and problems of philosophy, with examples from the major areas of philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. Yeah, that was, my guy's gonna be like, oh, we're gonna learn about the difference of what is metaphysics, what is epistemology, and what is ethics, and then like, who are a couple of really famous people? Like, that's probably about as deep as you go. That'd be my guess, but okay. Oh. And not really. There's a lot of reading and you go deep, but it all depends on how much you study. Without even having ever taken that class, I know you're full of shit. Get the fuck out of here. No shot, bro. I feel like I talked to philosophy graduates who are fucking retarded. There's no shot that in an intro to philosophy class, you're getting some ultra deep fucking understandings of like, oh yeah, like we had a huge debate over justified true belief and fucking, no fucking shot. Get the fuck out of here. It's probably the lightest fucking touch review ever, okay? It's a complete waste of time. I didn't say it was a complete waste of time. I seriously doubt you're getting ultra deep into fucking, okay, stop. Don't trigger me. What am I looking for? Christians, physics. Oh. Fuck. Well, I'm starting at this point. I'm gonna hate myself. I need to go work and do shit. That's what I need to do.
Christians who ask that have a metaphysics that's not Christian. Mm-hmm. So it's a non-starter, the question. It's like, you're asking me the question a materialist atheist would ask. And you want me to give you an answer that bolsters...
Like, just because you're a materialist versus like a dualist or you believe in some other metaphysics doesn't mean you don't believe in anything material. Like, that's not like, oh, well, I'm Christian, so I don't believe that wood is real or something. Like, just because you aren't strictly a materialist doesn't mean that everything becomes immaterial. Like,
is your faith, but the presumptions of your question are enlightenment atheistic. So it's like, I don't know how to play that game.
So do you think that to be a Christian...
Really? You don't know how to...
believe
do you believe that...
in historicity of the Exodus or the resurrection of Jesus?
Oh, nice. Oh, this is laggy as fuck now. Why? 44, 24. Do I need to root?
Well, I think those are separate issues, actually.
Okay, yeah, that's probably right.
An answer that bolsters your faith, but the presumptions of your question are enlightenment atheistic. So it's like, I don't know how to play that game.
So do you think that to be a Christian, you don't need to believe in the historicity of the Exodus or the resurrection of Jesus, for example?
Well, I think those are separate issues, actually.
Oh my God. Holy fucking shit. Does he ever answer a single fucking question in this entire interview?
Okay, yeah, that's probably right as well. And interesting, you know, I spent last night, it's a bit of a time delay, so it feels like longer, but last night I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. I said, you know, I'm speaking to Jordan Peterson tomorrow. I was thinking, how can I prepare for this? And we ended up, with my friend Sheehan's his name, we ended up having a conversation about whether whether Hamlet is a real person, right? And that was probably better preparation than anything else I could have done.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good question.
So take, if somebody asks, was Hamlet a real person? Sort of naively, I say, have you heard the story of Hamlet? Oh no, is that a real person? I would say no. However, there is a sense in which, and I'm trying to understand what you're saying here. There is a sense in which there are a lot of characters, infinitely many characters that Shakespeare never wrote about. Right? Those characters seem to exist less than Hamlet does. Even if Hamlet exists less than John Beeson and Alex O'Connor do in the
Hamlet might exist more
than me and you.
Well, okay. One of the things you pointed to in the analysis that you did, the talk I had with Jonathan Pajot, is my somewhat tongue-in-cheek comment that God is the ultimate fictional character.
Yes.
Right, which I think is a hilarious slide, by the way.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think I misunderstood. Now that I've watching that back, that's the thing I say. I think I might have misunderstood. Maybe that's what you're.
Deep is not the right word. I apologize, but I mean the topics covered are not easy. Like it's a tough course, is my point. Look at our syllabus. Aim of the course. In this course, we will examine, Intro to Philosophy. Some of the central topics in philosophy by means of a study, contemporary and historical philosophical texts. In this course, we will examine some of the central topics in philosophy by means of a study, contemporary and historical philosophical texts. In this course, we will examine some of the central topics in philosophy by means of a study, contemporary and historical philosophy. Okay. I'm just stroking out. Where is the of? There should be an of here, right? We will focus on questions such as the following. Can we prove that God exists? How do we know our own mind, and in what way can we know the world that lies outside our mind? How is the mind different from the body? Am I the same thing as my mind? Is the will free or subject to necessity or fate? Can we discover through reason a principle of morality and an account of happiness and the good life? Our questions thereby touch on the main branches of philosophy: metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. This guy got this from Google. This is the first result for Phil 101 syllabus. Oh, did he? Learning outcomes. Students successfully completing this course will be able to identify the principal branches of philosophy, articulate the diverse philosophical views of multiple historical and contemporary figures in philosophy in each of these branches, interpret and reconstruct the arguments in challenging philosophical texts, evaluate these arguments critically, synthesize textual interpretation and argument evaluation in clear, precise, and well-organized written expression. The required text is The Norton Introduction to Philosophy. (1,312-page book). What the fuck? Put the pen down, little bro. Don't plagiarize. I mean, it just seems like, yeah, it's like an intro course. I don't know why I don't know what I'm even arguing with you about. I'm just saying that, like, you're not taking an intro course like this and having like a super strong, in-depth understanding of any of these topics. You're getting like a taste of. My guess is going to be that this book probably, you're working on one text, so you're not reading any full books. This text probably has excerpts from some of the most popular positions, from some of the most popular historical philosophers, and then you're just like touching on and then understanding like each of these three branches of philosophy. That's probably what you're doing. It's not bad. I'm not trying to shit on like intro to philosophy class. I'm just saying I don't think you would ever scream like, "Well, I have a really good understanding because I took an intro to philosophy class." You would sound like a fucking retard, okay? That's all I'm saying. It says the books, read the contents down there. Where? All of these things are sourced out of the books themselves, out of that one book, right? It's this one book probably has excerpts, right? So like Kant was obviously being implied in the intro when it was saying, can we discover through reason a principle of morality and an account of happiness and the good life? Could you imagine that? Discovering morals from reason? Wow. What a transcendental idea. My God. Like, yeah. Not, again, I'm not shitting on it. I'm sorry. The impression or the means wasn't to shit on this. I'm just saying that, like, you would never come out of this intro course and feel like confidently, like, screaming that you've taken a class in philosophy and you can, yeah. Not to be too charitable to Mike, wasn't his claim that because he had a surface level knowledge of actual philosophical education and you're just a wiki retard with no education? Yeah, but the thing is that if you knew all of the wiki on philosophy, you would know extensively more information than somebody that would take an intro to philosophy course. So it's a stupid criticism, number one. And it's dumb on several levels. One is because an intro to philosophy course isn't going to have much information. Two is that the standard Wikipedia is going to have way more information than an intro course. Three is that it shows that he's probably overestimating what you would learn in an intro to philosophy course. And four, if you really want to do anything about reading about philosophy online and you're trying to read a wiki, you wouldn't even read the wiki. You would read you'd read the wiki that Stanford manages for philosophy. This plato.stanford.edu is going to have like way, way, way better and more in-depth information. And it's going to be more critically vetted and organized than like just the ordinary Wikipedia. So just his statement is stupid on like at least 4 different levels. But okay, I'm just saying he's a dumb fuck. That's all I'm saying.
You're about to tell me.
Well, let's walk through that. Yeah, because people see, and this is part of this underlying materialist, atheist, enlightenment ethos. People think that fiction and fact are opposites. It's like, no, they're not. Okay. Not at all. Okay, so let's use an analogy to begin with. What's more real, things or numbers? Okay, now I'm not going to make a case for either of those positions. I'm just saying that's an actual question. Yeah. You talk to mathematicians, they think, well, numbers are way more real than things. Things are evanescent. They disappear. They flash in and out of existence. Numbers are permanent. Yeah. And then you could think about...
That's an intense simplification of like arguments of like mathematical realism versus anti-realism or anything else. But like, does he say anything of substance ever? I'm listening for like 4 more minutes of this. Just get me the fuck out of here.
Biologically, it's like, well, how useful is numeracy to survival? Yeah. Like very... Right? When you become numerate, you're powerful in a way that the mere grip you have on the individual facts doesn't afford at all. So there are forms of abstraction that are clearly more real than the things from which they're abstracted, or at least as real. I would say more real because they're so powerful. Well, fiction is an abstraction, right? And so did Hamlet exist? It's like Hamlet is the pattern.
Oh, so he's okay. Well, at least we were able to guess his entire fucking mind state, right? That these abstractions, I call them Platonic universals. I don't know if this is the same thing as like a universal form because I didn't study any form of philosophy because I don't know fuck all about any of this. But it sounds like he's alluding to the fact that this universal form and understanding this universal form is necessarily a true like fact of the universe and gives you more power over the universe than understanding any particularized thing or whatever because it applies evenly everywhere. But there's a whole bunch of issues with looking at it this simplistically, but
of character that existed in multiple people over a very long period of time. And so Hamlet is an abstraction, like Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. Did Raskolnikov exist?
Massive cope. A student in this course reads about 20 pages sourced from the most influential works and authors of philosophy, a higher quality education than online summaries. Listen, bro, I love you. I'm giving you the big thumbs up. I'm assuming that that's a troll. I'm going to assume that that's a troll statement because you say 20 pages. I'm telling you right now that if you go and read like 5 pages from Kant and you pretend that you've understood a single fucking thing that you read, you're just utterly fucking clueless. I'm sorry, but in philosophy, you have to do so much background work to even understand what a particular philosopher, depending on what you're looking at. Like you could probably go through like some fucking the Plato or the Socratic, are they dialectics? What the fuck are they called? Like the stories where the people are arguing back and forth or whatever, dialogues or whatever. Like you can go through like a couple of these because they're dealing with very, very basic things. Very, very, very basic things that like any human can understand. Like very basic allegory things or very basic things about like metaphysics or whatever. But the idea that you're like reading, like 10 or 20 pages and you're getting a deep understanding of like a more, like a philosopher that's written more in depth than things is just never happening.
It's like Raskolnikov existed in the soul of every Russian from like 1850 to 1990, right? And so is it real? It's like, it's hyper real. Yeah. Fiction is hyper real.
It's a meta truth, as you put it.
Exactly. Now, is that real? Well,
when someone says, is that, if they listened to what you just said and understood it, then if they still ask the question, but is it real?
Is it real? It's like, it's hyper real over a very long period of time. And so Hamlet is an abstraction, like Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. Did Raskolnikov exist? It's like Raskolnikov existed in the soul of every Russian from like 1850 to 1990, right? And so is it real? It's like, it's hyper real.
Yeah. The way to break Peterson out is so easy. It would be so easy to break Peterson out of this for the entirety of his entire life. And that would be to take all of these ideas and turn them into a brain chip and just implant them into every single person that he interacts with for 2 days. And then he would never do this again. He walks into a restaurant. Oh, I'd like to order a coffee. And it's like, oh, well, a coffee. Well, what do you mean when you say coffee? Oh, that's a good one. I see you've seen my videos. No, sir, I'm really asking. What do you mean when you say coffee? Are you referring to the bean itself? Are you referring to a brown liquid that you assume is coffee? Have you ever actually tested any of it to be coffee before? What if what one man referred to as coffee was different than what another man referred to as, like if every single person in his life, I've got to be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, I need a ride to get there at 9 a.m. A ride? Well, when you say a ride, that could refer to so many different things. And when you say 9 a.m., from whose perspective? From what time? Has 9 a.m. always meant the same thing historically? Like, I guarantee that like in 2 days, he would be like, okay, shut the fuck up. You know what the fuck I mean when I say this. Holy shit. Nobody speaks and acts like this. Also, if you want to be, I'm being incredibly charitable, by the way, when I'm asserting these things, because the reality is, and I feel pretty strong when I say this, Peterson's not actually engaging in any of this with some level of curiosity. He's just doing this to bad faith obfuscate away from things that he knows that he can't actually justify. Because notice how it's so hard to stake out a single claim for any of this, but you better be fucking damn sure that we know that 20% of the excess deaths in Europe were caused by the vaccine, right? Isn't it strange that a man who can't even answer the question of did the Exodus actually happen, or what does it mean to even ask that question, can resolutely tell you that climate change is fake, that the vaccines killed, however many people, and that lockdowns were ineffective to prevent the spread of disease? Wow, those are some actually incredibly strong claims that you're staking in multiple different arenas. And in climate, is climatology a word? In climate sciences, in epidemiology, in like social, health policy, like you have very strong claims in these areas. Like, how are you able to do that, right? And the answer is because, well, when he has an answer that he wants to give, he will suddenly stake a very strong claim if he feels like he can justify it. But if he feels like he can't meaningfully engage with it, then the goal is to obfuscate and equivocate over and over and over again until you've needled the subject to death, and nobody's an idea what you're even fucking talking about. Yeah.
Fiction is hyper real.
It's a meta truth, as you put
right,
it in that
exactly. Now, is that real? Well,
when someone says, if they listen to what you've just said and understood it, then if they still ask the question, but is it real? You must understand that what they mean is like, did Aliona Ivanovna get hit in the head with an axe?
Right.
Like, yes or did that happen? Right. And again, you could still resort saying, it happened in the heart of every Russian who's ever thought about
I would say no to that specific.
But no, right? No is the answer.
Yeah.
And we can say no with confidence because we know that Dostoevsky sort of thought this up.
Yeah.
With something like, but no, right? Like, yes or did that happen?
Right.
And again, did Aliona Ivanovna get hit in the head with an axe?
Right.
Like, yes or did that happen?
Right.
And again, you could still resort saying, it happened in the heart of every Russian.
I don't know what this is referring to. Some Russian bullshit. Okay.
Right. Well, I would say no to that specific.
No, right? No is the answer.
Yeah.
And we can say no with confidence because we know that Dostoevsky sort of thought this up.
Yeah.
With something like...
when it comes to his stance on pronouns, holy shit, you better believe that he has a rock fucking solid foundation when it comes to, like, what pronoun you can call somebody, Oh, Crime and Punishment? Oh, I never read that book. Thank fucking God.
Walk through the desert. We can't just confidently say something like, no, that didn't happen. But we have to be more humble in saying something like, I don't know. But the comparison I made in this video, I put two...
Yeah, true. He will deconstruct literally every single facet of epistemology, of meta-epistemology, of metaphysics, of ethics. Every single thing can be infinitely deconstructed. But when it comes to like the concept of gender, holy shit, now we've entered the most capital R real world one can even imagine. Like, my God.
Questions side by side. You were asked by Douglas Murray, did Raskolnikov exist? And you say, well, I think that the events literally didn't happen, but that kind of misses something, and there's something more to talk about. And then you're asked,
the pattern is extremely real.
Sure. Then you're asked about Cain and Abel. The story of Cain and Abel happened.
Yeah, that's
like
better example.
famous. The question, did that happen? Begs the question. If you've got to consider, and you sort of, in a way that it seems strange to me, that the ease with which you were able to say of Raskolnikov and Dostoevsky, well, no, that didn't literally happen, of course, but you've got to understand that there's another sense in which we've got to talk about the truth of the story.
Well, the Cain and Abel story is quite complex because you could imagine easily that.
And now he's about to go ramble on this. I don't think Alex asked or cared. Like, now we're going to talk about all the metaphors and allegories present in Cain and Abel, even though it's obvious that Alex is trying to figure out if Peterson exists in the material world at all. What is he about to say here? Well, we can imagine that this actually happened in one sense, that this was a real story that truly did happen between people, but still represents something larger in reality. I don't know. He might go somewhere totally.
There was a fratricide at some point in the past that was of sufficient emotional magnitude.
Oh, fuck, based. I did pre-watch this video.
To have stories aggregate around it, to have an account aggregate around it. So it's easiest to presume that because why not? It's perfectly plausible that a primordial murder of that sort happened in the memory of that tribal people and was represented in that manner. Now, as the account in Iliad has done a very good job of pointing out how this develops too, you can think of Iliad's work on the mythologization of stories as an extension of Dawkins' idea of the meme, because Iliad discusses in great detail how an account mutates to, what would you say, to be maximally memorable across time. So it mutates. You can take there as a core that's true, let's say in a narrow historical sense, but the account mutates to be optimally adapted to the structure of memory that characterizes the human psyche.
And that comes out in story, like the story
Exactly.
Cain and Abel.
Right, and you get a maximally memorable story. Now, that's a meme. Is it true? That's a hard question because, you see...
I think Cain and Abel probably belongs more on the sort of brooding over the face of the waters category than it does Exodus category, for example. Like, so I think with Cain and Abel,
there's very little detail in it that would make it a specific historical event, right? I mean, because it's two generic brothers and there's a generic murder. But it's interesting, too, because even in the case of a specific fratricide, let's say, that actually happens in the world, well, there's all sorts of principalities involved in the background, right? So, for example, I spent a lot of time looking at Dylan Klebold's accounting of his mental state before shooting up the Columbine High School. Well, if you read that, it'll make your blood run cold. He's obviously possessed, whatever that means. Whatever that means.
Well, happy to accept the word possessed.
Well, look what he did.
Knowing, in part, I don't take it the wrong way, knowing that I'm speaking with you. I'm not going to take that as literally as I would if I was speaking to
well, literal is a very hard thing in a circumstance like that.
Well, what do we mean when we say literally? How are we done with this yet? Okay, at 52:30, I'm done with this video. I think I already went a minute and a half over. Fuck me, dude.
Klebold invited something in, and it wasn't pleasant, and it had its way with him, right? And the results, although dreadful, were nowhere near as dreadful as he was hoping they would be, right? It's dark. And is that real? So what happened there? It's like, well, one way of describing it is that, a alienated young man shot up a high school. Another way of representing it, which may be more true, is that it was another, what would you say, punctuated episode of a cosmic drama that's been going on forever. And it isn't obvious to me at all which of those two accounts is more real.
Well, it depends on what specific questions being asked. For example, right now, suppose that you were a witness to this crime, and the police pull you into questioning as a witness. And they say, we're trying.
Oh my God, hold on, wait. You're a witness to a crime. Oh boy, what does he say here?
Trying to gather information to try and catch the suspects. So suppose that there's no suicide involved. The suspects at large. And they're trying to get your help. And they say, so Dr. Peterson, what happened? And you say, well, I think what happened was the continuation, of sort of a punctuation in the long paragraph of the cosmic drama that is our human existence. And the police will say,
that's not what we meant.
Okay, but come on, help me out here, man. Really, and I think that's what people are doing with the registration.
Well, that's a level of analysis problem. So we went back, when we started this discussion.
Yes, it is a level of analysis. That's what he's getting at. That's what he's been getting at Has this been the entire talk? Have they been doing this the entire time, or did this just start like 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago?
You talked about the infinite regress for purposes for writing an essay, right? So what are you doing when you're writing an essay? You're making horizontal and curved marks with a pen. Right? Well, right. So, but there is a cosmic tree of events in every micro event, right? And when people, when they're looking for eyewitness testimony, they're asking you for something.
Why does Destiny Group impart why does destroy a group impart mean when describing genocide prevention? That's just the language that's used in the crime of genocide. So usually when people say, if you're trying to destroy a group in whole or in part, you're invoking the language of the genocide crime there.
Something like the highest possible level.
Time's up. Hold on, I want to hear if he actually ever, what would he say to the fucking cops? Does he ever get here?
Of narrow resolution you can manage.
Right. Ian McGilchrist just
that's right.
I just spoke with him, and unfortunately I think we lost about half the footage, so I'm not sure how much that'll be seen in the world, but he brought to my attention, I'm sure he said it was John Ruskin, who talked about having you see in a garden, you see like a square, and you think it's like a white square in the garden inexplicably, and then you go a bit closer and you see it's actually a page, it's a book. And then you look a bit closer and you see it's got words on it. You a microscope and you see actually it's got like ridges. And then you go a bit closer and you actually see atoms bumping into each other. And you go a bit closer.
Philosophy talks are always like this, no? No, that is not true. No, they're not. There's a lot that you could you can ask really interesting questions philosophically and then have some sort of insight into your life meaningfully from these types of interrogations. I think it's worthwhile to pursue different types of conversations philosophically. This is not, though. Peterson hasn't said a single thing of value at this point, I don't believe. At least that I've heard in this interview. I mean, maybe he did in a point that I didn't list earlier, but...
Those we see sort of waves and energy.
Yeah, right.
And he's sort of well, which of those is the real thing you saw?
Did you know a baby's heart begins to beat at just 3 weeks? At 5 weeks, that heartbeat can be heard on ultrasound, and this can sometimes be their only defense in the womb. That's where preborn steps in.
Well, and the thing is that
goes towards saving babies. To donate, dial #250 and say the keyword baby. That's #250 baby. Or go to preborn.com/Jordan. That's preborn.com/Jordan.
Right. Well, and the thing is that hierarchy that you just described, this is the cosmic tree of life. This is Yggdrasil. It's like you have got the quantum level and the atomic level and the molecular level and so forth up to the phenomenal level. That's not where it stops. I started to understand this when I was thinking something very peculiar. This is decades ago. I thought people will go to a museum to look at Elvis Presley's guitar. It's like, what the hell are they doing? So you can imagine that you have a display case and you have Elvis's guitar in it. And now you take that guitar out. Let's say it's a mass-produced guitar just for the sake of argument. You replace it with an identical model from the same year. Okay, now, is that Elvis's guitar? And
he's doing the same thing that I just said with the coffee question. Right? Well, when you refer to a cup of coffee or when you refer to a thing that is coffee, how do you know if the substance itself is coffee? What one man refers to as coffee, another person might refer to as coffee. Does the use case of coffee matter? Is it how you use it? Is it the understanding of what it is? Is it the intentionality of there's a lot of different ways you can analyze what a particular thing actually is when you're talking about material things. But the problem is to just endlessly I don't even know how I would call it pontification. To just endlessly inquire with no direction or aim is like the biggest form of philosophical gooning I've ever seen in my life, or philosophical edging.
People will say, and you can think it's so strange, people would say, well, even if I couldn't tell the difference, I would rather look at Elvis's guitar.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, what is that, some kind of delusion? Like, what the hell's going on here? No, the answer is, this is what Duchamp was on about when I think it was Duchamp who put the urinal in the art gallery.
Right.
So, right, what he was pointing to, and it was brilliant, was that much of what we perceive as concretely real is actually dependent on a hierarchical context that isn't part of the apprehension of the object. So when you go to see Elvis's guitar in a museum, the perception is informed by the context. It's like, well, you're an Elvis fan and you know a lot about Elvis history and you know that this is Elvis's town, and the object itself partakes in that higher order unity. That's the unity that extends off to heaven. Every object partakes in that embeddedness above. Like for the reductionist types, you'd say, well, what's this made of, right? It's like, well, it's molecules and then it's atoms and then it's like quantum, whatever the hell exists on the quantum level. That's what this is made of. It's like, wait a second, it's on this table. It's in this room. It's of this time. That's all this thing too. You know, and that's the higher order conceptualization, but it's just as much part of the object. And a reductionist view doesn't take that into account, and that's a big problem.
I think it's true that, you know, looking at Ruskin's book, piece of paper, it would be silly to always say, well, what's that in the garden over there? What's a bunch of atoms bumping into each other?
Right.
That'd be ludicrous.
Right. Well, that's also, so back to our discussion of Darwinian utility. It's like, well, it's the wrong level of
But
functional
look,
analysis.
surely it would also be inappropriate to do the opposite. That is like to always think at a higher resolution than people are obviously sort of practically trying to. So for example, if I was close enough to see, and I was interested in what paper is made of, and I said, what is this? And someone said, oh, it's a white square in the garden.
Yeah.
So well, that's inappropriate. You've gone too high.
Helpful. Yeah,
you focus down, right? And I feel like where you might criticize the reductionist materialists for going to too high resolution or too narrow, you go too wide on issues of religious historicity.
Well, you want to hit the target squarely, right? And that's hard. So in the Sermon on the Mount,
It's not hard. We do it intuitively, literally all the fucking time. It's not hard. It's actually incredibly simple because language is something that we have developed in order to facilitate communication between two minds. If I walk in and I want to say, "Hey, are you hungry?" Technically, the question is that's kind of a complicated thing. Like, well, am I hungry? What are you implying here? Like, if I say like sometimes somebody might come in and they go, like, "Oh, are you hungry?" And you're like, "Nah," and you don't say no because you're not hungry at all. You say no because what you're assuming they're asking you is, are we going to go out and get something to eat? And do you want to go out and get something to eat with me? Or do you want me to get you food? And instead of saying like, yeah, I'm kind of hungry, but I don't want any food, you're just like, no, I'm fine, or whatever. Meaning you are kind of hungry, but you're going to answer no to this because you know like we do all of this intuitively. Like every single day of our lives, we do this intuitively with how we use language. It's not hard to figure out the resolution of a particular question that somebody's giving you or a particular statement somebody's making. When a cop walks up to you and is like, where were you yesterday? And you were like, I believe it's referred to the Milky Way on planet Earth. Like, where were you? Oh, I was in my car. Where the fuck was your car? On the road. Like, we understand intuitively what's being asked, generally most of the time, right? Unless there's some communication issue. I don't know.
Oh, Christ addresses that to some degree.
Why the fuck? Okay.
So his injunction for paying attention properly takes local and distal into account simultaneously. He says, okay, this is what you have to do first of all. You orient yourself, so this is the highest level of orientation, right? So this is the divine orientation. It's the thing at the top of Jacob's ladder. It's the value at the pinnacle of the value hierarchy. You put what's properly highest first and foremost in the theater of your imagination, right? And then you align that with the belief that other people have the same intrinsic value as you and that are a reflection of that infinite value. You start there. Then you pay attention to the moment.
Yes,
right.
Tolstoy wrote about this in his Confession. I love it. It's like 100 pages long. You can read it in no time.
Yeah, it's a great book.
This wonderful account of essentially him sort of trying to battle with his reason and his faith. And he eventually concludes that he was looking in the wrong place. He was looking amongst intellectuals.
Yeah.
And he found that he looked, I think he sort of quite dismissively called like the simple people, and just your everyday person, the working man. And he found that it was something about sort of, you know, if you take someone who's
If I had the opportunity to talk to Peterson again, delete this VOD, August. If I have the opportunity, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this. Like, infinitely engage only on the like inquisitive level, or just like asking these like self-masturbatory questions, all masturbation is just asking all these like masturbatory questions. I'm just going to do this over and over and over again. And I bet he's going to say it's the most fun he's ever had in a conversation in my life. I can placate these people. I want to have this conversation with him. Let's talk philosophy. I bet he would unironically think I'm a genius. He would, true. His fans would think I'm a genius as well.
starving. And you bring him and you tell him to sort of take this metal pump and just pump it up and down, and don't tell him why. And he does it and the water starts flowing. It's like you have to actually do the thing, you have to live out the thing, and then you get to see why it works. So it's, you know, I understand that. I think that's probably true. He also says, Tolstoy, that is, in the same account, that he found that there was an exactly inverse correlation between the specificity of an answer and like the importance of the question. I can tell you exactly how many molecules are in that glass of water, but who cares?
Right,
and the more the question becomes about, you know, humanity, human life, the important stuff, the less specific the answer necessarily has to become. So I understand there is a
So you've alluded there to or indicated the relevance of value for perception, right? You nailed it with that observation, because as you pointed out, any phenomena can be analyzed at multiple levels of the hierarchy that it exists within. Okay, so what makes the choice of level of analysis appropriate? Well, it's something like, it is something that's akin to Darwinian utility. It's something like that. You can think about it less abstractly, is that you want the level of resolution that gives you maximal functional grip in relationship to your pursuit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's your pursuit? Well, two questions. What is your pursuit? And what should your pursuit be?
Yeah.
Well, your pursuit's necessary.
Like, he should just tie this back to everything. Oh, well, my pursuit is to find out factually if you believe there were real material human beings that were leaving Egypt. Like, he should just ground it back in that question over and over again.
Nested inside a hierarchy of pursuits. And when I said that God is the, what would you say, the ultimate pursuit that sits at the apex of the progression of pursuits, that is Jacob's ladder. That's what that's indicating in that vision, is that every act of perception unites earth and heaven.
Yep.
And the perception itself is invisibly dependent on whatever it is you're worshiping.
But here's one problem, right?
So that's very comical.
Because I think I see what you're saying, and I hope, what I tried to do in making that video essay about your religious views, and I suppose I wasn't, the main thing I was trying to do was sort of offer an interpretation, trying to get to grips with it, and I hope that you feel as though at least I'm making an effort here to really try and get what you're thinking at. One problem is that, in the early church, there was a debate around the physicality of Jesus' resurrection.
Yes.
So the canonical tradition ends up stipulating Jesus physically resurrected.
Yes.
You must believe that.
Yeah, and that's part of the Catholic particular emphasis on the divinity of the body, which has a real wisdom rather than a disembodied soul.
You also have like the Gnostic tradition, broadly speaking, the Gnostic tradition in early Christianity that's so popular that Valentinus nearly becomes the Bishop of Rome. He's nearly the Pope.
Yeah.
And there's I talked about this the other day, and I should have looked it up. I can't remember which church father it was that was telling the church community, the early church community, when you go to a new place, don't ask to be taken to the Christian church, ask to be taken to the Catholic church, because otherwise you might end up in a Gnostic church. It's so popular.
Right.
And a lot of the Gnostic tradition says that the thing that's being gotten wrong is the idea that there was this literal resurrection.
Right.
No, the kingdom of God is here and now. The resurrection is inside of you, and you attain it through gnosis. I mean, Gospel of Thomas, which is probably the most famous non-canonical gospel, and could have been written at the same time as like the Gospel of John. This is an early text. Doesn't even mention the resurrection. Doesn't mention crucifixion. It's a list of sayings. And the very form of that book, as one scholar whose name I've forgotten, unfortunately, has pointed out, of that collection shows that these people believed that the thing that's important is not what Jesus did, but what he said. The thing that's important is the knowledge. The thing that's important, right? And so this resurrection stuff sort of doesn't matter. Now the thing is, in that early church community, somebody who said, well, this question of like the resurrection is a physical, historical event, that you're kind of missing the point. The thing that matters is like, the resurrection that takes place inside of every person. It sort of sounds a little bit like the kind of approach that you would take. Now, if that's true, that would mean that in the early church, you'd have been condemned as a heretic. So when a modern Catholic says to you, Jordan Peterson, are you a Christian? What do you think about Catholicism? I think that the reason that they're interested is because if it's true what I'm saying, then they would have to say, oh, I suppose at least according to my understanding of Catholicism,
that's a form of Gnosticism.
I can't count you among my number. So I think that's probably why people are interested. And I wonder if you agree.
what would you say? That would constitute a genuine form of inquiry, for sure.
And I wonder if you feel like you're, I don't know.
See, one of the things I really like about the bodily tradition of the resurrection is that what it does that's so remarkable is that it doesn't desacralize the body.
Holy shit. I feel like this. Okay, listen, I like Alex. I'm assuming Alex is going along with this because he's to have a conversation with Peterson. I feel like this is an example of why ordinary people don't like to engage with philosophy, where they feel like this is like the prime example of like, what does it mean for people to just like say so many words with no substance whatsoever? This is such an unbelievably boring conversation. Like, there's nothing of value has been stated. Nothing has been resolved. It's just been like needlessly inquiring about every single facet of a meta conversation word that blah, 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 blah. I'm good, Chief. Okay. Only question I have. Sorry. I'm going to go do shit. Wait, on the end of this, the protest ending for the Great March of Return, I read somewhere that in December of 2019, Hamas negotiated a ceasefire that was brokered by Egypt and UNSCO, in exchange for fuel from Israel. Where did this statement come from? I read this and I wrote this down somewhere, but can somebody link me like a good article showing this? I can't find information about this like end here. Can you add a search bar to your Obsidian publish? Is that even possible? The comment section loves it.
Maybe it happened in a...
Alex has an unmatched mastery of using emotion-free logic while still maintaining a human level of personability. This is the most detailed and well-explained version of Peterson's position on God. I am grateful that I spent all these years learning English. What a privilege it is to be able to hear and understand this conversation. Okay. You missed the part where he actually breaks through. Good one. All right, I love you guys. I'm gonna go do stuff. Be careful. Stay safe. Do I have anything tomorrow? Alex's comment section was scathing. Oh, I might check that out later. Have fun. Bye.